Chapter 635. You have a way? Galantis enjoyed another round of human drifting. The greatsword almost touched the back of her head as it fell. She was so frightened that she almost screamed out loud. Luckily, she managed to hold it in. Bai Xiaowen smiled. He took out a scroll from his storage space and tore it open. Withering Fog Scroll, S-grade tool. Creates a fog with a radius equal to the user's mental strength *10 meters. Over time, all enemies in the fog would be stacked with layers of withering. Each layer of withering effect will reduce all attributes by 10%. Maximum of 5 layers. This scroll was what Bai Xiaowen had obtained in the Kane dimension. It needed to be advanced to a level 7 meditation specialty. Previously, because the level of the meditation specialty was not high enough, it had been collecting dust in the storage space. Now, it was time to put it to good use. With Bai Xiaowen's current mental strength, it was more than enough for the withering fog to cover the entire underground space. The fog spread rapidly, and soon filled the entire underground space. All enemies within the range of the fog began to accumulate layers of withering. 1 layer, 2 layers, 3 layers. Galantis cried out in shock and anger. Dior. What are you doing? Why are even Carlyle and I being negatively affected? Murta and Sonia were also a little panicked. Bai Xiaowen coughed. Sorry, ha. Pay attention to the main point. I'm mainly dealing with these colossi. You guys are just collateral damage. Actually, this kind of large-scale magic scroll tool was based on the subjective wishes of the user to distinguish between friend and foe. If the user did not deliberately distinguish between friends and foes, then the default camp relationship would prevail. It would only affect targets of the enemy camp. After Bai Xiaowen killed Mage Kevin and handed the seal to Galantis, it was equivalent to him leaving the rebel camp. Although he had not officially joined the Imperial Army camp, Galantis, Carlyle, and the others were already considered to be in the neutral camp to him. They would not be affected by the withering fog by default. The fact that the 4 leaders were affected by the withering mist was, of course, Bai Xiaowen's deliberate differentiation, and temporarily categorized the 4 of them as hostile targets. Except for Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi, everyone else in the field was rapidly weakening under the effect of the withering fog. After stacking 5 layers of the withering effect, the strength of the Colossus of Divinity had dropped from 100 points to 50 points, and its poor agility had dropped to 15 points. Their physique was reduced to 150 points, but their maximum HP remained at 3,000 points. It needs to be mentioned here that the upper limit of HP is Vitality *10, but when the enemy uses a debuff spell to reduce Vitality, the upper limit of HP will not change. The only thing that changed was that the natural armor and resistance brought by the physique would decrease along with the physique. Of course, 150 points of defense was still as solid as a rock, let alone 3,000 HP. Bai Xiaowen also did not have the extravagant hope of using the Withering Fog Scroll to destroy these Colossus of Divinity. Under the influence of the Despair Halo, he and Li Shi simply did not have enough endurance. It was better to save their skills, stamina, and mental strength to avoid the attacks of the Colossus of Divinity. Bai Xiaowen still decided to use the delaying tactic until the energy source of the Colossus of Divinity, the 7 sealing spells, burned out. The good news was that the attacks of the Colossus of Divinity with 15 points of agility could already be described as slow motion. The reduction of strength to 50 meant that the power of the stone sword's normal attack was also greatly reduced. The actual damage of one attack was only a few dozen points, which Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi could completely withstand, and the margin for error was greatly increased. The Withering Fog Scroll had such power not only because of the strong quality of the scroll itself as an S-grade tool, but also because Bai Xiaowen had chosen a suitable battlefield. Under normal circumstances, no enemy would be foolish enough to stay within a 1,000-meter radius of the Withering Fog. Bai Xiaowen's mental strength was 69 points, which meant that the diameter of the Withering Fog was 1,380 meters. For the powerful spiritual world leaders, this distance could be crossed easily without waiting for the effects of the Withering Fog to stack. And once they left the range of the Withering Fog, the layers of Withering Fog would quickly dissipate. But in this battlefield, the underground space itself was a sealed area with a 1,000-meter radius. All the areas were shrouded in fog, and there was no way to escape. Moreover, although Galantis and the other 3 leaders also suffered 5 layers of withering fog that reduced all their attributes by 50%, it was easier for them to dodge the weakened Colossus of Divinity than before. Their margin for error had also increased greatly. Even if they were swung 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, with the high HP of the leaders, they could completely withstand it. Li Shi asked in a low voice in the teen channel. Xiaowen, do you want to take advantage of this opportunity to get rid of these 4 leaders? If we succeed, we can take Galantis' head to the resistance army. It should be able to offset Kevin's negative effects, not to mention the 4 treasure chests. Li Shi was full of murderous intent. Bai Xiaowen sighed. Don't be too greedy. Our primary goal is to complete the 2 S-grade elite side quests. Under the effects of the Despair Aura and the Sluggish Aura, our combat power and endurance are very problematic. Although the attributes of the high-level bosses have been reduced by half, their HP is still high, and they are not so easy to kill. Especially that sword St. Carlisle. I have seen his skills. His strength is less restricted by his attributes, and it is very dangerous when he explodes. To put it bluntly, they were still not strong enough. Bai Xiaowen and Galantis needed to conserve their strength and try their best to avoid the attacks of the Colossus of Divinity. Then after the mission is completed, if the effect of the Withering Mist is still there, can we consider it? Li Shi asked. Bai Xiaowen shook his head and smiled bitterly. After the mission is completed, the unique aura skills of the Colossus of Divinity will also be gone, especially the Space Sealing Aura. Galantis has a teleportation item. If she is cornered by us, she can still escape, but we will offend the Imperial Army again. As the Great Lord of the North, Galantis' strength had not reached the Lord level. However, Bai Xiaowen speculated that the difficulty of killing Galantis would not be much lower than killing the Yusok. According to the rules of the spiritual realm, Galantis' specialty should be her strong life-saving ability. It would not be good to get into trouble if they could not catch the fox. It was better to do the mission honestly and save themselves the trouble. Time passed by minute by minute. Finally, the sealing spells of the first Colossus of Divinity burned out, and its movement stopped. The effect of the Holy Freezing Aura also dissipated. As if a chain reaction had been started, the second, the third. The Colossus of Divinity stopped moving as the sealing spells disappeared one by one. Chapter 636. The sealing spell on the holy box was completely extinguished. Bai Xiaowen's Eye of Evolution could see that the invisible threads connecting the 7 divine colossuses on the holy box had disappeared. As if it had lost its ability to float, the holy box fell gently to the ground with a thud. Granny Sonia and Dean Murda stood up at the same time. However, Li Shi's reaction was faster. He leaped up and ran to the holy box in a few steps and picked it up. The Spiritual Realms Rule Prompt Message, S+ Elite Side Mission, the secret of the monastery has been completed. Please submit the mission after leaving combat state. SS Special Elite Side Mission, the scavenger has been completed. Please open the holy box after leaving combat state to submit the mission. Bai Xiaowen was stunned. The so-called combat state was naturally referring to Dean Murda and Sonia. They had an obvious tendency to attack Bai Xiaowen. Even if they did not attack, the Spiritual Realms Rule would determine that they were in combat state. Dior Kale Bloom, hand over the Soul Stone and the holy box. Those are not things you should touch. Although Dean Murda was injured, her tone was still harsh. According to our previous agreement, I can use the God's Bestowment page to exchange with you. God's Bestowment page? Is this the thing? Bai Xiaowen gently peeled off a piece of parchment from the bottom of the holy box. The surface of this piece of parchment seemed to be sprinkled with magnesium powder. There were specks of light floating down. It was very gorgeous. At first glance, it was obvious that it was not an ordinary item. Dean Murda nodded. But the God's Bestowment page is already in my hands. It seems that I don't need to use something that I have already obtained as a bargaining chip, right? Bai Xiaowen said with a smile. So please allow me to reject this deal. Dior, if you really want to join the Imperial Army, I hope you can put away your greedy face, Galantis said with a frown. The Empire believes in the Lord of Light, and the Northshire Monastery is also a natural ally of the Imperial Army. If you forcibly seize the Soul Stone and the Holy Box, it means that you have chosen the evil faction. There will be no place for you in the Imperial Army. Bai Xiaowen shrugged. I'm sorry. He was indeed sorry. After this expedition, Dior Kaleblum's identity had become quite famous in the Aaron Bitwall, and no matter what mission he did next, it would be convenient. However, if no faction was willing to accept him, his identity to be accepted. The Resistance Army's reputation was already hostile. If the Imperial Army's gate was closed, the number of missions that could be unearthed in the next 8 days of free exploration would be greatly reduced. Galantis' expression turned cold, and she snorted. What an insatiable outsider. Let's go. Although Sonia had lost her arm and Murda was half crippled, the other party was still 4 senior leaders. If Bai Xiaowen's summoned creatures were here, he could still fight. But without the butcher, he was not confident that he could restrain Sword St. Carlisle. Li Shui nodded. The two of them ran toward the stone stairs, one in front and one behind. Stop them! Murda shouted sternly. Suddenly, Bai Xiaowen felt a burst of heat in the storage space. Then, a blue light spot bloomed beside him and quickly spread into a blue door. The space fluctuated, and a slender leg stepped out of the door first. Then, Bai Xiaowen saw the person who came. Finally, it worked. Qiao Rui appeared suddenly. She was wearing a hollowed-out robe with golden threads. Her crown was inlaid with an amethyst. She held an emerald-green bamboo flute. She saw Bai Xiaowen immediately and smiled in relief. I'm glad you're okay. Senior sister. Bai Xiaowen was a little confused. He did not expect Qiao Rui to suddenly appear here. I said that if fate wills it, we'll meet again in the spiritual realm. Qiao Rui blinked. Bai Xiaowen thought about the heat in the storage space. The source seemed to be the mysterious crystal that Qiao Rui gave him. However, he wisely did not say this out loud. He only smiled and nodded. Yes, fate wills it. Senior sister Qiao Rui is here. We can fight back. Li Shui was energized. She had a deep impression of Qiao Rui's strength. Ever since she followed Bai Xiaowen into the spiritual realm, Li Shui had always been successful. She had never been chased around by a boss like today. She was not used to it. Therefore, when she saw a new force joining, her first reaction was to fight back. Yes, there's no need to run. Bai Xiaowen took a deep look at Qiao Rui. This beautiful senior sister seemed to be hiding a lot of secrets. As for why Qiao Rui did not arrive before, she just happened to arrive after the 7 divine colossuses turned back into stone. Bai Xiaowen had a more likely guess. Qiao Rui must have used some kind of positioning teleportation item to arrive at Bai Xiaowen's side. She must have tried before, but due to the influence of the divine colossus's space-sealing halo, the positioning teleportation had always failed. That was why Qiao Rui said I finally succeeded as soon as she appeared. She was relieved when she saw that Bai Xiaowen was safe. Thinking of this, Bai Xiaowen was a little touched. In Qiao Rui's heart, he seemed to be really important. This feeling was not narcissistic. Bai Xiaowen did not think that Qiao Rui liked him. Until now, Bai Xiaowen felt more like a sister's care for her brother from Qiao Rui. As for how much of the feelings between a man and a woman, he could not say. There's another outsider. Are you guys done with your reminiscing? Galantis' voice sounded. Dior, I'll give you one last chance. Hand over the soul stone and the sealed holy box, and I'll let you go. I'll also give you a chance to join the Imperial Army. I refuse, Bai Xiaowen said. Do it. Be careful not to let them escape, Lady Galantis, Murda said in a deep voice. Sorry, I think, you guys should be the ones running. Bai Xiaowen clenched his fists, raised his palm, and said with a smile. Shadow assassin, necromancer, skeleton swordsman, skeleton warrior. Summoned creatures appeared one by one. With a long wolf howl, a giant wolf wrath claw with glossy fur and a body as strong as an ox appeared. These 4 are all enemies, right? Qiao Rui nodded slightly. She held the emerald green bamboo flute to her lips and quietly played a soul rhythm. Chapter 637. The shadow assassin entered stealth mode, and the other summoned creatures advanced steadily. Li Shi activated the phase shift effect of her shoes and rushed toward Galantis. Her mission was to deal with this leader who was good at magic attacks. Carlyle loyally blocked in front of Li Shi. The moment the 2 figures were about to touch, Carlyle's speed increased sharply. He suddenly appeared behind Li Shi and stabbed toward Li Shi's back. Facing Carlyle, Li Shi's agility, which he was so proud of, was severely suppressed. Fortunately, her melee specialization was quite high, and she instinctively moved a few inches away. Chi! Carlyle's sword light left a trail of blood on Li Shi's back. This was just a probing stab. After putting Li Shi into a slightly stiff state, Carlyle gathered a little strength and stabbed out again, bringing along 3 additional afterimages with the tip of his sword. Combat skill, multi-layered swordsmanship. Chi! A bolt of lightning struck. Lightning strike. Carlyle's figure suddenly froze. At this moment, Qiao Rui finally caught sight of his figure. He raised his hand and cast Soul Cage. Switch fire. Bai Xiaowen opened his hands, and an invisible pressure suddenly spread out. Deterrence activated. In an instant, the Murda, who was rushing over, and Galantis, who was casting spells, all fell into a state of fear. Granny Sonia was even more miserable. She was directly knocked unconscious. Bai Xiaowen activated rapid fire mode, and bullets were wildly fired at Carlyle, signaling the prelude to the attack. The first shot triggered Bloodlust, causing 10% of the maximum health points of Carlyle's true damage. Li Shi ignored the pain in his back and turned around vigorously. The blood-red longsword in his right hand flashed, and a spring of blood was drawn from Carlyle's body and poured onto the sword. Then, 3 consecutive stabs followed. Wrathclaw and Skeleton Warrior swarmed forward. Wrathclaw used Tear and Lacerate, while Skeleton Warrior gathered strength and slashed. Although Carlyle was strong, he was a damage dealer. As a blade master with high agility and high swordsmanship, Carlyle had always relied on critical hits to attack and dodging to defend. After being restricted by Qiao Rui's soul cage, he obviously could not take a beating as a target. In the first 3 seconds, which was also the moment when Bai Xiaowen's firepower was the strongest, Carlyle's health points had dropped by 500 plus. In an instant, Carlyle and Galantis' hearts were flustered. They did not expect Bai Xiaowen's team to be so strong, and their teamwork was so good. At this moment, the mind cage's control duration was about to end, but Angry Claw had already stood up and placed its claws on Carlyle's shoulders from behind. It was about to use its ultimate move to suppress Carlyle. Galantis, who had recovered from her fear state, screamed. She took out a magic scroll and tore it open. Blue light spread out and enveloped Galantis, Carlyle, Murda, and Sonia, who were not far behind them. Then, the blue light quickly shrank into a dot of light, and the 4 leaders disappeared. Wrathclaw missed and chewed on a mouthful of dirt and rocks. It whimpered in dissatisfaction. Phew! It's finally over. Bai Xiaowen let out a long breath and walked to Wrathclaw. He took out some jerky and fed it to comfort it. He knew that Galantis had the means of teleportation. He did not expect to get the treasure chest. A high-level leader with a special status like Galantis was definitely different from ordinary high-level leaders. Her life-saving ability was very strong. Unless there was a targeted item like the Space Lock Halo or the War Chain, it was basically impossible to kill her. Senior, why did you suddenly come here? Li Shi asked Qiao Rui curiously. Well, it's a coincidence. Qiao Rui skillfully changed the topic. You can actually enter this kind of hidden dungeon. What kind of mission did you trigger? The reward must be very good. Hurry up and turn in the mission. There's an S+ elite side mission, and, well, I can't say. Li Shi thought of the secret level of the scavenger mission and quickly stopped. Qiao Rui smiled. It's the scavenger mission, right? Yes. Senior, you know about it too? Li Shi was surprised. I've done this kind of special mission before. Qiao Rui's eyes flashed with nostalgia. It's really difficult. It's almost impossible to survive. Ah. That's a bit exaggerated. Can't you use a forced return item to leave? Li Shi said with a smile. Bai Xiaowen continued, not necessarily. For example, this time. With the space lock halo, any teleportation item will be ineffective. Li Shi nodded in realization. Hurry up and turn in the mission. Let's see what the reward is, Qiao Rui said. No rush. Bai Xiaowen closed his eyes slightly and began to communicate with the spiritual realm's precepts. In the previous scavenger mission, he had a taste of negotiating with the spiritual realm's precepts. To be precise, he had negotiated with the spiritual realm's precepts. This time, he planned to do the same. I've completed the SS-level scavenger mission. Now, I want to receive the reward. The spiritual realm's precepts prompted, please open the sealed holy box to turn in the mission. Wait, the mission objective was to find the sealed holy box and destroy the seal incantation, right? Bai Xiaowen pointed at the dimmed seal incantation on the sealed holy box. Now that the mission has been completed, why do I still have to do these unnecessary steps? Please open the sealed holy box to turn in the mission, the spiritual realm's precepts replied stiffly and mechanically. Can you give me the Grim Reaper's hand bone as the mission reward? For it, not only did I offend the Resistance Army, but I also offended the Imperial Army and suffered great losses. These losses can't be compensated with some ancient divine power residue. Bai Xiaowen planned to pester endlessly. After all, he had the upper hand now. No. After the spiritual realm's precepts rejected him, they seemed to have crashed for a second. Then, another prompt came. Based on your completion rate, the precepts allow you to purify and upgrade your mission reward, the ancient divine power residue. Upgrading requires a certain amount of psionic energy points. Do you agree? Warning, if you don't have enough psionic energy points, the upgrade will fail. Bai Xiaowen glanced at his remaining 400,000 psionic energy points and said readily, no problem. But I have a small request. He felt that the spiritual realm's precepts seemed to have changed again. It seemed to have changed from a program to a programming ape. The spiritual realm's precepts were speechless. Bai Xiaowen was sweating in his heart. This string of ellipses seemed very human. He felt more confident in his heart. Chapter 638. Rejected, the spirit world's rule, or rather, the person behind the scenes, replied stiffly. All right then. I'll just upgrade the scavenger mission reward. Bai Xiaowen accepted his fate and opened the sealed holy box. Inside the sealed box, there was a piece of withered hand bone lying quietly. This hand bone looked ordinary, but if one looked at it for a long time, they would feel as if their souls were being sucked into it. This is the hand bone of Death Nero? This bone is a little loose. Bai Xiaowen muttered. After the holy box was opened, Death Nero's hand bone turned into spots of light and slowly disappeared. Some of the light yellow particles attached to the hand bone peeled off during this process. It was as if an invisible hand had caught these yellow particles and made them float in the air. Then, the yellow particles were squeezed together, and the light of the psionic particles enveloped them. Bai Xiaowen's psionic energy points on his personal interface were plummeting. Each jump was actually 10,000 points. Bai Xiaowen's eyes widened. This degree of plummeting. Even his 400,000 points could not take it. Fortunately, the duration was short. After paying the price of 100,000 psionic energy points, the yellow particles finally condensed into a transparent crystal the size of a soybean. The spirit world's rule notification sounded. SS Rank Special Elite Side Mission, Scavenger has been submitted. Completion rate, perfect. You have received a reward, Purified Divine Power Residue. Your elite team has received 1,500 experience points. You have met the upgrade requirements. You have received combat experience as a reward. Bai Xiaowen did not look at the experience reward at the end. He first looked at the description of the transparent crystal. Purified Divine Power Residue. After purification, some of the impurities have been removed. It has a miraculous effect of being reborn. Awaken with a standard template can directly upgrade to an elite template after using it. Awaken with an elite profession can activate the hero's trial after using it. Awaken with a hero profession can obtain free attribute points as a reward after using it. Bound upon pickup. Upgrade template? Bai Xiaowen quickly clicked on the keyword Hero's Trial to search for it. Hero's Trial, only a small number of elites can obtain this trial opportunity. After choosing to activate the Hero's Trial, the Awakened would enter an isolated plane world alone to explore. There were no main missions for this exploration, only trial missions. If you successfully complete the trial mission, you will be promoted to the Hero class template. Otherwise, you will only receive free attribute points as compensation. Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi looked at each other, and their eyes lit up. Qiao Rui exclaimed, "No wonder it's an SS-level scavenger quest. It's the first time I've seen such a precious item." Bai Xiaowen couldn't help but want to say that he had paid another 100,000 points of spiritual energy for it after negotiating with the big shot behind the rules of the Spiritor's Realm. Earlier, Bai Xiaowen negotiated with the rules of the Spiritor's Realm in silence, and Li Shui and Qiao Rui did not know that. This thing must be used by Shui. As long as he completed the trial mission, he would be able to upgrade to the hero template. It's so worth it. Compared to the elite template, the hero template was an all-around enhancement. The enhancement of the basic attributes meant that he could wear the best equipment with higher requirements. The enhancement of the class skills and the +1 in the combat skills column meant that he had a better choice of skills. Finally, there was the +1 in the basic skill counter advantage. After carefully putting away the purified residue of divine power, Bai Xiaowen suddenly thought of something. It seemed that the residue of divine power came from the Grim Reaper's hand. In other words, the big shot behind the rules of the Spiritor's Realm did not pay anything and directly took away the Grim Reaper's hand. And Bai Xiaowen worked so hard and spent so many precious S-level items, and in the end, he only got some scraps? Well, it was the scraps after the purification. The purified points of spiritual energy were provided by Bai Xiaowen. Although the reward of this SS-level elite quest could help Li Shui to upgrade his template, Bai Xiaowen still felt that it was a bit of a waste. At the end of the day, it's because I lack the initiative. This time, Richard's trio gave me some inspiration. In the future, I can try to get something similar to a royal document. In the next scavenger quest, if I encounter items like the golden snake disc or the Grim Reaper's hand, I can take them for myself. Oh. No. I have to confirm that the big shot behind the scenes can't interfere with the normal operation of the rules of the Spiritor's Realm. Otherwise, it'll be the coffee table that makes things difficult for me. Bai Xiaowen fantasized for a while and then chose to submit the Mystic Monastery's secret mission. After a series of EXP and Team EXP notifications, Bai Xiaowen finally received the S+ mission reward. It's actually a God's Bestowment page? Bai Xiaowen silently looked at the God's Bestowment page in his hand and was speechless. Now, the God's Bestowment page finally resonated with his spiritual energy particles and belonged to him. But that was not the end. A notification from the Spiritor's Realm's rules sounded. You have received a chance to upgrade the mission reward. Performing this operation will cost you a certain amount of spiritual energy points. Confirm? Bai Xiaowen was surprised and hurriedly chose to confirm. His spiritual energy points dived again, but this time, the speed was not as shocking as before. 1,000 points, 2,000, 3,000, in the end, he spent 10,000 spiritual energy points. The God's bestowment page was enveloped in a soft glow of spiritual energy particles, and the rustling sound of silkworms nibbling on mulberry leaves could be heard. When the glow faded, Bai Xiaowen finally received a notification from the rules of the Spirit's realm. You have received an item, Book of Sublimation. Book of Sublimation, S+ grade item. A mysterious page that contains the aura of God. It can upgrade the grade of an item. When used on items that are lower than S grade and have not been obtained for trade, it can upgrade the target item by 1 grade. Disappears after use. Upgrade by 1 grade? What does that mean? Li Shi asked. Qiao Rui said, it should be a major upgrade, such as upgrading an A grade item to an S grade item instead of an A+ grade item. After all, the Book of Sublimation is an S+ grade item and a one-time consumable item. It can't only upgrade a small grade item. Bai Xiaowen nodded. To maximize the benefits, it should be used on an A+ grade item and upgrade it to an S+ grade item after use. Bai Xiaowen rummaged through his inventory. As of now, this should be the most suitable non-trade item. Broken Slave Contract, A+ grade item. Sign a contract with a humanoid creature with a normal template and make it your slave. If the other party does not agree to sign the contract, there is a chance of failure. The higher the level of the other party, the higher the chance of failure. Chapter 639. Li Shi had always followed Bai Xiaowen's lead. Qiao Rui was not Bai Xiaowen's teammate, so he would not raise any objections. Bai Xiaowen used the S+ item, Book of Sublimation, on the Broken Slave Contract. As he watched the light flash, his thoughts wandered for 0.1 seconds. Originally, when Bai Xiaowen requested to upgrade the reward of this S+ elite mission, the big shot behind the scenes coldly refused. However, in the end, he upgraded the reward and upgraded the God's bestowment page into the Book of Sublimation. It was worth it to pay an extra 10,000 psionic energy points for this. From this, it seemed that the big shot behind the scenes was in a good mood after obtaining the Grim Reaper's hand bone. What Bai Xiaowen wanted to complain was that this big shot was probably a little arrogant. He said that he would not upgrade it, but in the end, he still did. A burst of light enveloped the Broken Slave Contract. Then, the light dispersed. The original Broken Slave Contract had changed greatly. Strengthen Follower Contract, S+ item. Sign a contract with a humanoid creature below the boss template, including the boss template, and make it your follower. The other party has to be completely willing to sign the contract, cannot be confused, charming, or mentally retarded, and cannot have any consciousness of resistance. Otherwise, there is a chance of failure. The higher the level of the other party and the stronger the template, the higher the chance of failure. There was a special prompt at the end. If your template or level is lower than the target humanoid creature, the chance of failure of the contract will increase. The greater the difference between the two parties, the higher the chance of failure. Follower was a new term for Bai Xiaowen. He looked up the meaning of follower. After completing the SS rank elite scavenger mission, Bai Xiaowen's scavenger title was upgraded to intermediate. Perhaps because of this, the spirit world's laws quickly gave him an answer. Generally speaking, Awakened could choose a spirit world character or another Awakened to form a follower contract and make the other party their follower. Followers were different from summoned creatures. They had independent personalities and wills. They could use equipment, items, and learn skills. It was equivalent to having an additional teammate. In addition, followers did not enjoy the master's mental strength enhancement. As the master, he could not forcibly distort the will of the follower to act. However, the master controlled the life and death of the follower. He could kill the follower with just a thought. In addition, if the master died, the follower would die as well. Therefore, generally speaking, there was no need to worry about the loyalty of followers. However, signing a follower contract was not an easy task. If the other party had any intention of resisting, the contract would have to be forcefully signed. This way, there was a chance of failure, unless the user's strength far exceeded the target's. Qiao Rui added that if a follower contract was used on an Awakened, No matter how much stronger they were, they would not be able to force them to sign the contract. As long as the other party had the intention to resist, the signing of the contract would definitely fail. Keep it for now. Let me think about how to use it. Bai Xiaowen put away the contract and looked at Gloria, who was frozen on the altar. After such a long time, it's time to check on Gloria. The three of them walked up to the altar and observed it carefully. Gloria's face, neck, and other exposed skin had already shown a strange, deathly white color, as if she had some kind of skin disease. The black gas continued to circulate on the surface of her body. Every time it passed through a patch of skin, it would cause a large area of skin tissue to die and fall off. This was the terrifying power of the death curse. If it was anyone else, they would have long since been cursed by the death god, their entire body would have rotted away and they would be deader than dead. However, on Gloria's skin, there was also a faint, blazing white flame that constantly chased after the black gas. When it passed through the necrotic skin tissue, the blazing white flame would make a sizzling sound, as if boiling oil was roasting flesh. Although the white flame had a purifying effect and would stop the decay of the skin after passing through, turning it into a bloodless white, the pain was hair-raising. Gloria had been standing there for a long time. During this period, every second was purgatory. Her blue eyes were bloodshot. Bai Xiaowen stood opposite Gloria and sighed. In a voice that only he could hear, he murmured, "I'm sorry." At that time, Bai Xiaowen was lurking nearby, and Gloria was deceived by the fake Prince Richard to retrieve the sealed holy box. Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi were the only two people present who knew the ins and outs of the matter. If Bai Xiaowen had warned her, perhaps Gloria would not have been fooled and ended up in such a miserable state. However, Bai Xiaowen had scruples in his heart and chose to endure. This was what he felt guilty about. After all, Gloria was one of the few noble people he had seen in the spiritual world. She was kind, upright, and steadfast. She had all the usual virtues of a Western knight. And she's beautiful and has a good figure, Bai Xiaowen silently added in his heart. Of course, even if Bai Xiaowen had a strong sense of justice and stood up to stop Gloria, saying that Prince Richard was a fake, it would have been difficult for him to gain Gloria's trust. If he had given up the invisible state of the Night Crow plume, he might have been besieged by Richard, Gloria, and the others. It would have been too dangerous. With 2 elite side missions of S rank and above, Bai Xiaowen had reached the final step. He would never allow himself to make a mistake. Speaking of which, how could he help Gloria to make himself feel better? Bai Xiaowen looked into Gloria's blue eyes. Gloria was also looking at him. Hiss, a hoarse sound came from Gloria's throat, but unfortunately, it could not form a sentence. This level 8 leader could not even say a word under the double torture of the death curse and the power of light in her body. Her vocal cords were probably damaged. Bai Xiaowen sighed and said, "This means that Gloria's actual situation is more serious than it looks. Not only is her skin damaged, but her internal organs are probably also damaged. So pitiful." Li Shi turned his head away, unable to bear the sight. "Her soul is crying." Qiao Rui closed his eyes slightly and rubbed between his eyebrows. "She wants you to do it yourself and end her pain." Although she could not move or speak, Bai Xiaowen could still see 2 words from Gloria's blue eyes: "Kill me." "Okay." Bai Xiaowen sighed. Perhaps killing Gloria and ending her torture was the best choice. At this moment, Delifa's voice came from the Black Soul Stone and directly sounded in Bai Xiaowen's mind. "Master, I have to remind you that if you kill her, the power of the death curse is likely to be transmitted to your body." "Huh?" Bai Xiaowen was shocked and put down his raised hand. "Are you sure? How did you know?" "I've been analyzing the memory fragments of Vampire Lord Marcus. In the process, I recovered some of my sealed memories." Delifa seemed to have changed a little and said softly, "The death curse is entrusted with the undying will of the death god, Nero. It won't disappear with Gloria's death." "Then what should I do?" Bai Xiaowen asked. "Master, you can choose to leave directly and go as far as possible. According to my assessment, Gloria has the blessing of the power of light in her body, which will continue to wear down the power of the death curse. It should be a stalemate for a long time. Maybe by then, the power of the death curse will be worn out. If the power of the death curse is worn out, can Gloria still live? Delifa's tone was a little helpless. Master, a mortal can't survive when their body is decaying and necrotic. Bai Xiaowen frowned slightly. Li Shi said in the team channel, Xiaowen, I have an idea. Didn't you draw a bottle of resurrection holy water before? Why don't you kill Gloria and use the resurrection holy water to resurrect her? Bai Xiaowen shook his head and refused. No, the resurrection holy water is too precious. It's equivalent to the second life of a spiritual world creature. We can't use it like this. Moreover, killing her will cause the death curse to be transferred to us. Bai Xiaowen was very rational. He wouldn't use this precious gold item just because of a moment of sympathy. He did have sympathy and even an apologetic attitude toward Gloria, but it wasn't to the extent that he would risk everything to save her. When he drew the resurrection holy water, Bai Xiaowen had an idea. This gold item should be left to Cecilia of the White Stone Hill as a safeguard. Bai Xiaowen wouldn't consider using it in advance unless he encountered a benefit that was much higher than the resurrection holy water. Of course, there would be benefits to saving Gloria, but the benefits were too low. If Gloria met the conditions to use the strong follower contract, Bai Xiaowen could consider using it and gain a champion knight of God's grace as a follower. However, the follower contract required that the target's level and template couldn't be higher than the user's. Gloria's level was as high as level 8, so she was destined to not meet the requirements of the contract. Delifa said, Master, if you want to end her pain, you can also consider another way. Speak. Master can transform Gloria into a Death Knight. Delifa said, after Master killed the Death Knight Kale, didn't you get a frozen heart? This is the source of the Death Knight's power. Master can put the frozen heart into Gloria's chest to replace the necrotic heart. And then? What about the Death's curse? Delifa said, I can help Gloria absorb all the negative energy of the Death's curse into the frozen heart, which is a great supplement for her and can speed up her transformation process. After a pause, Gloria said, however, to help Gloria transform into a Death Knight, it will consume soul essence. The hundreds of soul essences that Master obtained from the battle in the mausoleum are estimated to not be much left. Moreover, even if Master can get Gloria's loyalty, there is no way to take her out of the Aran plane. Bai Xiaowen nodded slightly, to end her pain and get the help of a senior leader Death Knight in the remaining time. For this, you have to pay an S-grade special treasure, the Frozen Heart, and hundreds of soul essences? I can accept it. Delifa, are you sure you can succeed in the transformation? Delifa was very confident, Master, don't worry, I have completely analyzed Marcus' memory fragments, which contain the knowledge steps to transform into a Death Knight. I will definitely succeed. Okay, then let's begin. Bai Xiaowen narrowed his eyes, took out the frozen heart, and then summoned Delifa. The appearance of the soul catcher Delifa, who had a hot body and was wearing skimpy clothes, startled Xiao Rui as soon as she appeared. Junior Xiaowen has another summoned creature, why is she dressed like this? Xiao Rui looked at Delifa as if he was looking at a legendary flirtatious slut. Li Shi and Bai Xiaowen were a little embarrassed. However, Xiao Rui was a few years older, after all, and was more receptive. After the initial surprise, she looked up and down at Delifa's sexy body, and said with a smile, what an enviable golden ratio, and these 3 measurements, all men should like this. Looking at Xiao Rui's playful smile, Bai Xiaowen inexplicably felt awkward, as if he had been caught by his sister watching a porn show. This feeling was very absurd. I'm a decent person, Delifa said that this dress is beneficial for her in battle, Bai Xiaowen said seriously. Men. Xiao Rui pursed her lips slightly, why did you summon her? Bai Xiaowen and Delifa's previous conversation had been through telepathy, so Xiao Rui did not know. Bai Xiaowen then explained that he was going to transform Gloria into a Death Knight. Li Shi hesitated, will Gloria be willing to become a Death Knight? Her original class was the Champion Knight of Grace. Qiao Rui stared into Gloria's eyes, and after a few seconds, she said, "That's strange. That's strange. She seems very willing." "Okay. Delifa, begin," Bai Xiaowen ordered. "Yes, sir." Delifa took the frozen heart, then took off Gloria's armor, and an etherealized dagger appeared in her right hand. She cut open Gloria's chest, revealing the dead heart inside. The scene was a little bloody. Bai Xiaowen, Li Shui, and Qiao Rui all turned their backs and walked down the altar. "I still don't understand why Gloria is willing to be transformed into a Death Knight." Li Shui was very confused. Bai Xiaowen said thoughtfully, "It might be because of her unwillingness and hatred. After Richard's betrayal, her sense of value will probably be completely destroyed and reconstructed. She used to be loyal to the Empire, but now she hates the Empire as much as she hates it." Qiao Rui gently touched the curve of her chin with a finger. "I heard that Death Knights are all transformed from genuine knights. The stronger a knight's beliefs are when he was alive, the stronger he will be after being transformed into a Death Knight. I really don't know what kind of monster Gloria will be transformed into under the effect of the Death Curse and the enhancement of the Soul Essence." Bai Xiaowen silently added in her heart, "Let's not talk about this for now." Bai Xiaowen changed the topic. "Senior, I remember you said, as long as we meet again in the spirit realm, it means that we are fated. Can I invite you to join my team now?" Qiao Rui chuckled. This seemingly coincidental reunion was actually her purpose for coming here. She believed that Bai Xiaowen knew this very well. However, Bai Xiaowen was very smart and did not take the initiative to expose her. Qiao Rui was not pretentious and agreed readily, "Okay. But does your team have a third spot now?" Bai Xiaowen said, "Our team was originally only at level 2. After the surprise attack on Northshire, we were a few hundred experience points away from level 3. Now that we've completed 2 elite grade S and above missions, we have enough experience points." Chapter 640. Level Up Successful. Your team's level is, Team Skill, Brutality has been upgraded to level 3. Critical hit rate plus 8%, up from 7%. Team Skill, Traction has been upgraded to level 3. Traction range has been increased to 150 meters. Cooldown has been reduced to 7 hours. Your team has received a temporary member slot. Other than being unable to use the public storage space, temporary members are the same as official members in all other aspects. 10,000 psionic points will be deducted when a temporary member joins the team. From now on, every time the team enters the spiritual realm, the psionic points of the member's level X 1000 will be deducted. After a series of notifications from the spiritual realm, Bai Xiaowen heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he sent an invitation to Qiao Rui. "Senior, there are only temporary members available now. I'll pay for the psionic points you've spent." According to Bai Xiaowen's research, official members would only be added when the team reached level 4. Qiao Rui did not mind. She smiled and said, "It's every support's dream to be able to join a team with such potential. These psionic points are nothing." Bai Xiaowen said, "A top support like Senior Qiao Rui can increase the team's upper limit. It's my honor to be able to invite Senior Qiao Rui to join us." Li Shi's slender fingers hooked her ears. "Why do I feel like you guys are flattering each other?" "Ha ha," Bai Xiaowen and Qiao Rui both laughed. Bai Xiaowen said seriously, "Shi, this is not flattering each other. In the past, our first reaction when we saw a lord was to run away. After accumulating strength for so long, and now that Senior Qiao Rui has joined us, our team can try to cause trouble for a lord." Qiao Rui's soul rhythm was really too strong. Percentage reduction of attributes. Bai Xiaowen was determined to win over Qiao Rui after seeing the information about this skill. The percentage reduction of attributes was very strong. One could tell by looking at the S-grade Withering Mist scroll. However, the Withering Fog scroll was a fixed area. As long as the enemy escaped from the range of 1,000 meters, the withering effect would disappear. However, Qiao Rui's soul rhythm made it impossible for the opponent to escape. Furthermore, it was an AoE debuff, which was simply invincible. Don't call me senior, sister. I'm a few years older than you. Just call me sister, Qiao Rui said. Sister Qiao. By Li Shui. Sister Qiao. By Xiaowen. The two of them readily accepted the advice, but Qiao Rui sighed softly without leaving a trace. In addition to the increase in the team's experience, Bai Xiaowen and Li Shui's combat experience had also increased significantly. Bai Xiaowen had already reached level 6 with 69% of his experience points. The two elite quests that were S-grade and above, especially the SS-grade sweeper quest, had given him a total of 35% of his experience points. On Li Shui's side, due to the contribution points from killing monsters, his experience points were less. However, the experience points from the quests were not reduced at all. In addition, the experience points required for elite quests were originally less than hero quests. Li Shui's experience points had increased to 93% of level 6. What did that mean? Li Shui would soon reach level 7 and enter the ranks of the Advanced Awakened. When Qiao Rui heard this, she clicked her tongue and praised, "Your leveling speed is as fast as a rocket. You're only in your first year of university, yet you're already level 7. Many people wouldn't dare to imagine that. Sister Qiao, you'll know in the future. Xiaowen is super fierce when it comes to quests." Li Shui looked like a fangirl. Basically, every time we explore the spirit realm, we have to complete a few elite quests and even hero quests. I didn't know how powerful Bai Xiaowen was in the past. Later, I heard that Qi Ruifeng from Jiannan University went to the spirit realm and completed an A-grade elite quest and became complacent. Only then did I understand how powerful Bai Xiaowen is. Li Shui was a little wary of Qiao Rui's joining the team. The reason was needless to say, but he mainly welcomed him. This was because, as Bai Xiaowen had said, Qiao Rui had the ability to increase the team's upper limit. This was also due to the fact that the rules of the spirit realm encouraged teaming up. When the Awakened entered the spirit realm in a team, although the experience points from killing monsters would be shared, the experience points from completing quests would not be discounted. It was the same as completing quests alone. Of course, in the team mode, the excavation quests would automatically become small team quests. The difficulty would also be lowered according to the number of people and their levels. However, the reduction was very small. Compared to the huge advantage of teaming up, it was nothing. When Qiao Rui joined the team, it seemed that there would be one more person to share resources with. In fact, the experience points gained from completing quests would not be reduced. In fact, it would increase. A team of 3 would have the ability to challenge more difficult quests. A team of 3 would have the ability to challenge a lord. This was a qualitative change. At the thought of receiving dark gold equipment in the future, Li Shui felt a burst of joy in his heart. In addition, Li Shui was sincerely thinking about Bai Xiaowen. Bai Xiaowen had an irreconcilable conflict with the Zhao family of Taiwan. It was impossible to rely on the super gods to protect him. What was Qiao Rui's background? She was the granddaughter of a big shot in the central government. With her backing, why would Bai Xiaowen be afraid of the Zhao family? Voice over voice, Bai Xiaowen, I'm not afraid to begin with, let's give the team a good name. There were only 2 of us before, so there was no need for a name. In the future, the team will become stronger and stronger. It's time to think of a good name, said Li Shui. Isn't the default Black Front team good enough? Bai Xiaowen coughed. No, we used the Black Front oath to create a team. Does it have to be called the Black Front team? If other teams also use the Black Front oath to create a team, won't they have the same name as us? Li Shui objected. Let me think. How about Team 3-3? Qiao Rui, Li Shui, okay, Xiaowen can take a break. Sister Qiao and I will take care of the naming. At this moment, Li Shui thought of the 2 poor white eagles named One and Tutu. He also thought of the fear of being dominated by Bai Xiaowen's terrible naming skills. After Qiao Rui and Li Shui's discussion, the team was finally named White Phoenix. Good thing we didn't name it Phoenix directly, Bai Xiaowen complained in his mind. Girls like these flashy but impractical names. There's a meaning behind it. White is you, Phoenix is me. Together, we're still a white phoenix. How beautiful is that? Li Shi said. Okay. Bai Xiaowen's survival instincts forced him to accept the team name unconditionally. From the sound of it, it seems to be slightly better than Black Edge. Master. Delifa called out. Is it done? Bai Xiaowen's heart skipped a beat as he turned around. Chapter 641. Part of what I can do has been done. Now it's up to her. Let's see how strong her hatred and unwillingness are. Delifa explained, transforming from a humanoid to an undead is a very painful process. Most undead creatures don't have memories of their lives because the pain of being reincarnated is too intense, and their memories are torn apart. The stronger the template, the more painful the reincarnation process. Very few undead creatures who can retain their memories in such a painful process generally become powerful leader-level powerhouses. The Death Knight that Gloria transforms into is also a leader level, right? Can her memories be retained? Bai Xiaowen asked. This was related to the way he would interact with Gloria, or rather, the way he would dupe her. Like other Death Knights, part of it will be forgotten, but those very vivid and unforgettable memories will still be retained. Of course, the premise is that she can survive. Without a strong enough obsession, the final outcome can only be a failure of reincarnation, Delifa explained. While speaking, the black mist wrapped around Gloria's body wriggled more violently and suddenly began to shrink. The cold wind whistled wildly, and Bai Xiaowen could feel the cold energy surging from all directions of the mausoleum. It felt as if Gloria had turned into a black hole, greedily swallowing the surrounding yin energy. Delifa's face showed a hint of joy and said, "It seems that she has survived, and now she can even actively absorb the yin energy in the mausoleum. Amazing, she must be very powerful after her reincarnation." As the yin energy entered her body, the black mist on the surface of Gloria's body also rapidly shrank and poured into Gloria's body. In the end, the black mist coiling around her body, together with the gathered yin energy, was sucked into Gloria's body like a whale sucking in water. What came into view was a head of white hair, like the snow in the northern region. The armor on Gloria's body, which was originally shining with a luster, seemed to be infected by the cold yin energy, turning from azure blue to dark blue. The most noteworthy thing was Gloria's two-handed greatsword. As if an invisible hand had brushed past it, the greatsword was covered with blue ice flowers, and the lion's head on the edge of the sword quickly twisted and turned into a skull. This. Frostmourne? Bai Xiaowen's heart was pounding. Did he create an Aran Plains version of the Lich King? Gloria's closed eyes slowly opened. His originally blue eyes became even more crystalline and translucent, flashing with a magnificent icy blue light. And at the corner of his eyes, there were still wisps of cold air flowing. Gloria's skin was pale and sickly white, but her figure was still curvaceous. Her thighs were long and slender, and they were faintly discernible under the dark blue armor. It was hard to take one's eyes off them. The Death Knights belonged to the Corpse Demon race, while the Terror Knights belonged to the Bone race. Although they were both cavalry, their appearances were completely different. Compared to the skeletons of the Dread Knights, the appearance of the Death Knights was closer to that of humans. Bai Xiaowen grumbled on behalf of Butcher and Zombie Doctor. It was unfair. We're all from the Corpse Demon race, so why is it that I, the Butcher, am so ugly, and the Zombie Doctor is so wretched, but Gloria's looks haven't dropped? Gloria's lips opened and closed, and clear words came out of her mouth. I am the Master of the North. I am the Master of Aran. I control death, I rule the dead. I will tear apart the world of the living and build a kingdom of death on the earth. The three villainous boss-like sentences made the newly named White Phoenix squad dumbfounded. Bai Xiaowen? Li Shi, Sigma, degree winky face. Qiao Rui, degree, Delifer didn't find it strange and explained, Master, there's no need to find it strange. Intelligent undead creatures were born out of hatred. After reincarnating, they would naturally have a strong hatred for the living. In fact, it's not just the intelligent undead creatures. Those weak and unintelligent skeletons will also attack out of instinctive disgust when they encounter living creatures. I'm just surprised that Gloria's temperament has changed so much, Bai Xiaowen said. It's common for humans to change their temperament after a great change, not to mention that she died once. Her personality when she was alive has basically been obliterated, Delifa said. She won't attack us, right? Li Shi whispered. She won't. These two words didn't come from Delifa, but from Gloria, who was above the altar. Her voice was the same as the previous Chinibu declaration, with a cold aura that made people shudder. Bai Xiaowen silently used insight on Gloria. Gloria, leader level 8, /growth state, race, undead/corpse demon race, profession, Black Knight, attributes, STR 75, DX 36, Constitution 65, Spirit 33, special skill? Skill 1, Cursed Blade, passive. Gloria's normal attacks have a cursed effect, causing additional shadow damage and randomly inflicting a negative status on the enemy. Actively casting the Cursed Blade can resurrect the living creatures killed by Gloria into undead creatures and fight for her. The transformed undead creatures will continue to exist until they die in battle. Skill 2, Empty. Skill 3, Empty. Skill 4, Empty. Skill 5, Death Domination Level 3, health points increased by 500 points, toughness increased by 50%. These attributes. Bai Xiaowen was stunned. High STR and Constitution. Her total attributes are off the charts. What really caught Bai Xiaowen's attention was the growth state behind Gloria's name board. Growth state, Black Knight. Gloria's body hides great potential. With the passage of time and the process of experience, she will quickly grow and become stronger. Why are there 3 empty skill slots? Li Shi was puzzled and asked in the team channel. After reading the information shared by Bai Xiaowen, Qiao Rui thought for a moment and replied in the team channel, Gloria may be a transition between a rare boss and a lord. Didn't the Banshee say that the reincarnation process of an undead creature is very painful? Many memories will be torn apart. Gloria's previous skills may have been forgotten. The only combat skill Xiaowen detected is the Cursed Blade, which is also a passive ability based on the Black Knight's special constitution. Bai Xiaowen nodded. That means Gloria also needs to learn in battle and gradually grow to the level of a lord. We actually created a lord. Li Shi's expression was incredulous. Fortunately, she said that she won't attack us. While the 3 of them were discussing in private, Gloria met the gaze of the White Phoenix team and said calmly, I remember you, Dior C. Kale Bloom. Li Shi winked at Bai Xiaowen. She remembered the words of the Banshee Delifa. An intelligent undead creature would only retain very vivid and unforgettable memories. Bai Xiaowen ignored Li Shi's little gesture and began to bluff. Hello, Gloria. I don't feel good. My cold heart is beating in my chest, and only the energy of death flows between my frozen blood vessels. However, I will try my best to adapt. This is a new beginning, Gloria said calmly. You and your Banshee helped me complete my reincarnation and gave me a chance to take revenge on the living. I will remember this favor. That's good. Finally, you won't chase after me for the Soul Stone, Bai Xiaowen asked tentatively. If Gloria asked for the Black Soul Stone for the sake of increasing her strength after becoming a Black Knight, the 2 of them would inevitably fight. Bai Xiaowen was actually not worried. Although Gloria's attributes were strong now, she had just reincarnated and was still weak. With the strength of the 3 members of the White Phoenix team, they could even compete with a real lord, not to mention Gloria, a Black Knight who was between a rare leader and a lord. Gloria's icy blue eyes did not waver. The Soul Stone is meaningless to me. In comparison, I hope that you will fall and join my kingdom of the dead to command my army of the dead. This, army of the dead? Bai Xiaowen looked around subconsciously. I control death. All living things are my reserve army. It's easy to form an army of the dead. Gloria's tone was calm. She said such pretentious words as if she was stating a fact. Tell me, are you willing to join me? Bai Xiaowen was about to complain when he suddenly received a notification from the spiritual world's precepts. You have received the acceptance of the Black Knight Gloria. Do you agree to join the new faction, Kingdom of the Dead? Warning: the Kingdom of the Dead is a special force that is the enemy of all living things. Joining the Kingdom of the Dead will cause your reputation in the other factions in the Aeron Plane world to drop to hostile. The 3 members of the White Phoenix team received the notification at the same time. But the decision to join or not was in the hands of the captain, Bai Xiaowen. I don't seem to have a choice. Bai Xiaowen shrugged. He did not know how many factions there were in the other regions of the Alolan continent, but Bai Xiaowen could not join the 2 major factions in the northern region, the Rebellion Army and the Imperial Army. In order to not waste the next 8 days doing nothing, joining the Kingdom of the Dead was a good choice. Moreover, the spiritual world's precepts generally stated that the greater the risk, the higher the reward. It was like gambling. Joining the Kingdom of the Dead was so dangerous. One could imagine that the rewards would not be low. Bai Xiaowen asked for the opinions of his 2 teammates. Li Shi had always followed Bai Xiaowen's decision. Qiao Rui also seemed to trust Bai Xiaowen very much and did not have any objections. I'll join, Bai Xiaowen said. Gloria's pale face was expressionless, but there was a hint of joy in her tone. You've made a wise choice, Drs. Kale Bloom. The spiritual world's precepts prompted information. You have joined a new faction, the Kingdom of the Dead. You have triggered the hero side mission, the Rise of the Death Lord. Do you accept? The Kingdom of the Dead faction reputation is activated. Current reputation level, respect. You are in a hidden hostile relationship with the other factions in the Alolan continent. You cannot join other factions. When your identity in the Kingdom of the Dead faction is revealed, all factions that know your true identity will be in a clear state of hostility against you. The Black Knight Gloria's favorability towards you has increased. Current favorability level, friend. The Black Knight Gloria's favorability towards you has increased. Current favorability level, admire. After receiving this notification, Bai Xiaowen was a little confused. Gloria was already an undead, but she still had favorability? This. Was she still in love with a ghost? However, Gloria seemed to have become more beautiful now, and her figure was sexier. Should he continue to cultivate her? Gloria did not know Bai Xiaowen's dirty thoughts, or she would have rewarded him with a sword. In fact, Gloria's favorability were mainly because Bai Xiaowen had helped her reincarnate. In a sense, Bai Xiaowen had given Gloria a second life. In other words, such a big thing as bestowing life was only at the admire level. It was easy to imagine how difficult it would be to increase her favorability by another level. After all, there was a boundary between life and death between living beings and undead creatures. This was a natural moat. Bai Xiaowen's thoughts flew away for 0.1 seconds before coming back to reality. He focused on the hero side mission. Lord level side mission, the Rise of the Death Lord. Mission objective, assist the Black Knight Gloria to grow to the Lord level or above, including the Lord level. Mission difficulty, C-. Mission duration, none, equivalent to the remaining time you stay in the Aeron Bitwall. Mission reward, unknown. He actually dug up a Lord-level side mission. To be precise, Bai Xiaowen did not take the initiative to dig it up. He was hit on the head by a B-level Lord-level side mission. Should he accept it? Of course, he would accept it. Bai Xiaowen did not expect that out of sympathy. He gave up an S-level treasure, the Frozen Heart, and hundreds of soul essences to create the Black Knight Gloria. He did not expect there to be such a follow-up. Obviously, this was a Lord-level side mission with a relatively long time span. There were many secondary small missions in the process, so it was definitely worth doing. Bai Xiaowen explained his speculation to his 2 teammates, and the entire White Phoenix squad accepted the mission. Gloria nodded in satisfaction. Now, I can feel some chaotic life auras, very close to us. Harvest them, Gloria said slowly, let them become the first soldiers of the army of the undead. The spiritual realm's rules prompt information, elite side mission, the first sacrifice, activated. Mission objective, kill all the living beings in the lower level of the mausoleum. Mission difficulty, B-. Mission duration, 4 hours. Mission reward, unknown, Xiao Rui said with a smile, it's really his junior brother guessed. It's a B elite side mission at the beginning. Not bad. The living beings in the lower level of the mausoleum. They should be the royal halberd-wielding guards who came with the fake Prince Richard. There are also a few palace guards under Grandis. Although they are all elites and have unique skills that increase their HP the more people there are, they are still no match for us. Bai Xiaowen analyzed, the difficulty of the mission is that all living beings have to be killed. We can't let any of them go. Chapter 642. At the lower level of the mausoleum, in a tomb close to the underground space. A group of elite soldiers in armor were waiting in boredom in the tomb. Why hasn't the Lord come out yet? Should we go and take a look? A North Palace guard said. The Northern Palace guards beside him all expressed their agreement. They were all elite guards that Galantis had brought out from the North Prefecture when she was escaping, and their loyalty was unquestionable. No! 2 halberds crossed and blocked the door leading to the front of the tomb. The halberd-wielding guards under Prince Richard blocked the path of these loyal guards. Long before Prince Richard entered the Light Pass, he had secretly ordered the guards holding halberds under his command to not allow anyone to follow him into the Light Pass. The reason for this secret order was due to the selfishness of the fake Prince Richard. His original plan was to use the North County as bait to collude with Galantis, kill Murda and Sonia, and snatch Death God Nero's hand bone. At the same time, he could hide his identity. In this way, after leaving the monastery, the fake Prince Richard could continue to use his identity as a prince to gain benefits. In addition, the halberd-wielding guards blocking the way to the Light Pass could also guard against the troublemakers, that's right, against Bai Xiaowen and Li Shui. However, Richard had never expected that Bai Xiaowen would arrive at the Light Pass one step ahead of him. The plan he had prepared to kill 2 birds with 1 stone did not come into use at all. You keep blocking. What is the meaning of this? A North Palace guard said angrily. We have to confirm Lady Galantis' safety. Lady Galantis is very safe. They might be back soon. Before the halberd-wielding Imperial Guard could finish his words, he was struck in the head by a spear. Fresh blood flowed out, and he fell to the ground. Enemy attack. Which direction? It seems to be the Light Pass. The tomb was in chaos in an instant. However, these halberd-wielding guards were all elites, and their reaction speed was extremely fast. 2 were left to monitor the North Palace guards, and the other guards quickly formed a battle formation. 2 of them slipped to the corner of the wall beside the door and looked in the direction of the Light Pass. However, the underground mausoleum was only illuminated by the luminous moss, and the light was too weak. Before the 2 of them could see clearly, a sound wave accompanied by the sound of a gunshot came at them. At the same time, a figure dashed over and slashed out with 2 swords. Fight! The 2 halberd-wielding royal guards did not get killed instantly again because they had a lot of allies around them. They also had the passive health buff from Solemn Honor, so they had a lot of HP. Instead, they covered their bleeding wounds and screamed at the top of their lungs. Li Shui crashed into the crowd like a whirlwind. With the support of her level 7 swordsmanship, her high agility was fully utilized. She constantly created wounds on the halberd-wielding guards around her, but she was never touched. The imperial family's halberd-wielding guards used long weapons. If many of them besieged Li Shui, they would be worried about accidentally injuring their allies. Ready. Thrust. The 2 royal halberd-wielding guards simultaneously activated their combat skill, halberd thrust. Their agility was only 30+, but with the power of the skill, the thrust's speed soared. It was a strike speed of more than 60 points of agility. Once one was stabbed by multiple halberds, it would cause an additional confinement effect. However, Li Shi smiled slightly. Her figure turned into a phantom and swept across the battlefield. As she dodged the halberd's thrusts, every enemy around her took a hit from her sword. Combat skill, Shadowless Slash. With both passive skills stacked 10 times, Li Shi's combat power was off the charts. She was as fast as the wind, shuttling through the crowd and attacking. A metal whirlwind rushed forward. The skeleton warrior activated Whirlwind Slash and rampaged all the way, repelling the enemies along the way. The attributes of the Imperial family's halberd-wielding guards were too balanced. As high-level elites, their strength was not as high as the skeleton warriors. Then, the Wolf King Wrathclaw entered the battlefield and gnashed its teeth and claws. Bai Xiaowen's bullets shot out one after another, wildly attacking through the narrow door of the tomb. The other doors of this tomb were already guarded by the skeleton sword-shielded guards. If someone wanted to escape, although the skeleton sword-shielded guards could not defeat them, it would not be a problem to block them for a while. It would be enough for the White Phoenix team to free up and clean them up. The melodious sound of the flute rang out. Qiao Rui played the soul rhythm, and the attributes of all the enemies began to drop. The elite halberd-wielding guards were stunned and could not organize an effective counterattack. Gloria stood beside Bai Xiaowen. She did not make a move immediately, as if she was evaluating the strength of the White Phoenix team. Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, "Gloria, what did I say? Our team is very strong. You don't need to make a move at all. Good cooperation. But it's too slow." Gloria did not talk nonsense with Bai Xiaowen. Step by step, she walked toward the tomb battlefield. The frequency of her steps did not seem fast, but each step was like a long pole touching the ground. She crossed a distance of several feet and arrived in front of the tomb door in a few steps. Bai Xiaowen was stunned and shouted, "Hey, don't!" Gloria raised the blue skeletal sword in her right hand. Death's breath. The skeleton on the hilt of the sword seemed to come alive. The shadow of a skull drilled out and laughed wildly at the group of pitiful elites. A terrifying cold current gushed out and swept through the entire tomb. It was worth mentioning that Gloria had judged Li Shi as an ally. This death's breath did not affect Li Shi. One by one, the elite halberd-wielding guards fell to the ground. Their HP was not high to begin with. Under the powerful AoE of Death's Breath, their HP quickly dropped to 0. Bai Xiaowen was heartbroken. There were still a few elites that he did not have time to deal the finishing blow. Now, their soul essence was gone. This prodigal woman. She doesn't know how much of my soul essence I used to reincarnate. What a waste. Bai Xiaowen muttered in his heart. Then, he quickly switched to continuous shooting mode and crazily attacked. He wanted to get as much contribution as he could. This Death's Breath skill was the special skill that Bai Xiaowen could not detect. Soon, all the enemies in the field were wiped out. Bai Xiaowen also received the notification that the B Elite Side mission, the first offering, had been completed. This Elite Side mission was simply a benefit. It was extremely easy to complete. However, the completion rate and evaluation were not very good. After all, the White Phoenix team did not contribute much. It was mainly Gloria's work. Gloria, you've changed. You used to be such a simple person. When did you learn to steal kills? Bai Xiaowen silently complained. Gloria did not hear Bai Xiaowen's thoughts. She stood in the middle of the tomb, her icy blue eyes emotionlessly glanced at the corpses that were scattered all over the ground. Then, she raised her blue skeletal sword. Chapter 643. Bai Xiaowen almost thought that he had transmigrated. Wasn't that the Lich King's line? Well, actually, Gloria was talking about the warriors of the Kingdom of Death. Bai Xiaowen had a preconceived notion and had some hearing problems. On the tip of the skeletal greatsword, wisps of cold energy spread out and drilled into the group of corpses lying on the ground. Amidst the wailing and howling, the corpses stood up one by one and were all transformed into unintelligent corpse fey monsters, zombies. Bai Xiaowen checked the information of these zombies. These zombies were very special. In terms of attributes, they were similar to when they were alive, but their spirit and dexterity were lower. Their corresponding strength and constitution were increased. However, their skills were a bit lame. They only had a passive skill called corpse poison that could stack poison on the body of a living being. It was equivalent to the attributes of an elite creature and weaker than the skills of an ordinary creature. These zombies could be seen as incomplete versions of elite creatures. In a one-on-one fight, they could defeat ordinary template creatures with their attribute advantage, but they were definitely no match for elites of the same level. But thinking about it, these zombies were permanent slaves transformed by Gloria. They did not consume any resources and were completely acceptable. Bai Xiaowen chose to submit the mission. The spiritual realm's rules prompted information: be elite mission, the first sacrifice has been submitted. Your reputation in the Kingdom of Death camp has increased. Current reputation level, respect, unchanged. There were more prompts after that. They were that Gloria's favorability had increased, but it was still at the friend level. His reputation in the Imperial Army camp had decreased, and the favorability of leaders such as Gloria had decreased. Bai Xiaowen ignored all these prompts. What really lifted his spirits were the last two prompts. You've received 750 achievement points, Kingdom of Death. Black Knight Gloria has learned the combat skill, Undead Sacrifice. Based on your talent, insight, you can check the simple information of the Undead Sacrifice skill. Undead Sacrifice: when Gloria sacrifices undead slaves, she will strengthen her allies, including herself, and add a buff to them. The more slaves sacrificed and the stronger they are, the stronger the buff. Although he could not see the details, Bai Xiaowen could tell that Undead Sacrifice was an army skill that was specially created for rich tycoons like Gloria who did not lack undead slaves. As for the merit points of the Nation of Death, Bai Xiaowen inquired about how to use them, and the results left him speechless. Currently, the Nation of Death had just been established, and they did not even have a quartermaster. Merit points were just a string of numbers, and there was no place to spend them. Bai Xiaowen estimated that they would have to wait until the Nation of Death had its own territory before they could exchange for merit points. Under Gloria's command, the dozen or so newly transformed elite zombies marched forward in formation. There are many undead sealed in this mausoleum. Most of them are derivatives without intelligence. Without the power of the death god's hand bone, they will only decay if they stay here. Out of instinct, they will be attracted to me and take the initiative to become my slaves, Gloria said. Bai Xiaowen cursed in his heart. What is a protagonist template? What is a protagonist aura? Just look at Gloria and you will know. You said that most of the derivatives will submit to you. Then, there are some leader-level powerhouses with their own intelligence. What will they do? Bai Xiaowen asked the question that he was concerned about. Gloria led the group forward as she said, after the seal on the holy box dissipated, those leader-level undead have already escaped. I can sense that there are no longer any leader-level undead auras in this mausoleum. Bai Xiaowen understood. That was true. The undead creatures had been sealed in this mausoleum for hundreds of years. Now that the seal had been broken, the mindless undead creatures didn't know how to run, but the intelligent undead leaders would definitely want to leave this prison as soon as possible. What a pity! Bai Xiaowen smacked his lips. You want to kill those leaders of the undead? Gloria keenly noticed Bai Xiaowen's intention. No, I just feel that it is a pity. If those leaders of the undead could join your command, it would greatly increase the strength of the Death Kingdom, Bai Xiaowen denied. Gloria did not continue on this topic. She changed the topic and said, I can sense that there are many chaotic auras above our heads. They should be from the Imperial Army camp stationed outside the monastery. They were brought here by the fake Prince Richard, Bai Xiaowen said. It seems that the teleportation item used by Gloria should have a random landing point. The final landing point is very far away. She did not have time to come back and take away these Imperial Army soldiers. If Galantis could control the landing point of the teleportation, she would have chosen a location close to the Northshire Abbey. Then, she would have turned back and taken away the camp of soldiers brought by the fake Prince Richard. After all, it was a troop of a few hundred people. As a commander without an army, Galantis would definitely not let them go. When she heard Richard's name, Gloria's icy blue eyes flashed with hatred. The surrounding temperature dropped a lot. Kill them all. Turn them into my slaves. When I find that outsider called Richard, I will turn him into the lowliest undead slave until the flame of the soul dissipates. Gloria was not lying. She seemed to have some kind of attraction to the derivatives of the undead creatures in the mausoleum. Every time she passed by an area, the derivatives nearby would automatically be attracted to her. 2 hours later, the White Phoenix team and Gloria walked out of the spiral staircase on the first floor of the mausoleum and returned to the surface. At this time, there were hundreds of undead monsters following behind Gloria. Except for a dozen of them which were zombies transformed from the first offering mission, the rest were unintelligent derivatives of the undead sealed in the mausoleum. Without exception, they were all true elites. And they were not the incomplete version of zombies that did not know how to use skills. Other than their lack of intelligence, they had no shortcomings. When the leaders of the undead escaped, they also took some of the derivatives of the undead with them. These hundreds were the only ones left. There were so many derivatives of the undead in the mausoleum that it was terrifying. Soon, the undead army of the Kingdom of the Dead arrived at the gates of the monastery and launched an attack on the Imperial Army camp. Gloria's method of controlling these unintelligent undead was very simple and crude. She pointed her skeletal greatsword and roared in a low voice. The undead rushed over. Really rushed over. Chapter 644. Bai Xiaowen had the advantage of long-range attacks, insight, and mental perception. He specifically targeted the elite officers in the Imperial Army camp. After dealing damage with one shot, he would immediately move on to the next target without any hesitation. Bai Xiaowen's goal was no longer to kill and contribute to the treasure chest. Instead, he wanted to take advantage of the situation and earn some soul essences. Gloria rushed to the front. Although she had lost most of her memories after the transformation and had even forgotten her skills, Gloria's combat expertise had not weakened at all. This was an instinct that was engraved in her bones. She could fully utilize the advantage of high attributes. Every time she swung her skeletal greatsword, she would take away the life of an Imperial Army soldier. Dozens of Imperial Army soldiers, under the leadership of 2 elite officers, formed a spear and round shield formation, trying to stop Gloria. However, they were still too young. This kind of dense formation was simply a live target for AoE skills. Gloria swung her skeletal greatsword and spat out a breath of death. The ordinary Imperial Army soldiers fell directly to the ground. The 2 elite officers also lost a lot of health points. The skin tissue on the surface of their bodies rotted in large chunks, and they screamed in pain. Bai Xiaowen sighed. Pa, pa. 2 shots ended their pain, and the soul essences fell into his bag. Warriors of the Kingdom of the Dead, rise. Gloria raised her skeletal greatsword again. Coldine energy spread out and pulled up a group of skeletal soldiers from the corpses, as well as a few newly added elite zombies. This scene finally destroyed the fighting spirit of the Imperial Army soldiers. They scrambled to escape. Leave none alive. Gloria said coldly. Her left hand, which was wrapped in a faint blue gauntlet, opened slightly and aimed at the escaping Imperial soldiers. Coldine energy surged, and the escaping soldiers seemed to be held back by invisible shackles. No matter how hard they tried, they could not move half a step forward. Gloria's left hand made a pulling motion behind her. Suddenly, the escaping soldiers seemed to be pulled by invisible chains and were dragged in front of Gloria. The undead monsters swarmed forward. Bai Xiaowen received a notification: Black Knight Gloria has learned a combat skill, Death's Grasp. Based on your insight, Death's Grasp, Gloria chooses an enemy within 100 meters. After a short accumulation of power, she will drag all enemies within a radius of 25 meters to her side and apply a heavy slowing effect. Gloria can also use Death's Grasp without accumulation of power, but she can only drag one target. Alright, It's becoming more and more like a Death Knight, in an enhanced version. Bai Xiaowen grumbled in his heart, but his hands were not slow at all. He raised his hand to summon the skeleton swordsman and other creatures to block the entrance of the stone stairs down the mountain. For the sake of the follow-up plan, Bai Xiaowen had to cooperate with Gloria and kill these Imperial soldiers. Unfortunately, there were not many elites in this military camp. Gloria, 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 and Gloria, Gloria and Gloria and Gloria, 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 and Gloria. Gloria cast the cursed blade again and resurrected dozens of undead Imperial soldiers to fight for her. The cursed blade could only resurrect the life forms killed by Gloria. This was not as good as Delifa's corpse resurrection skill. However, the undead creatures resurrected by the cursed blade were permanent. This advantage alone made Gloria much better than corpse resurrection. I roughly sense that there are no longer any living people in the monastery. Those nuns have been killed by the undead leader that escaped from the mausoleum, Bai Xiaowen said. Apart from the two leaders, Matron Murta and Sister Sonia, there were many elite and normal nuns in the monastery. When the spell sealing the holy box dissipated, these nuns must have encountered the undead leader that escaped from the mausoleum in the monastery's backyard. Not to mention the undead's natural hatred for life forms, the undead leader would definitely take revenge on these nuns for imprisoning them for so many years. The fanatical nuns had no intention of running away. To them, sacrificing for the Lord of Light was a great honor. Even if the undead leader did not provoke them, they would definitely take the initiative to drag him into the battle. Judging from the Imperial army camp in front of the monastery's gate, the undead leader should have taken a detour to escape and did not fight the soldiers in the camp head-on. This was normal. After all, it was an army of hundreds of people. Normal undead leaders would not be able to defeat them. Not every undead leader was as crazy as Gloria, who had the help of the White Phoenix team. The battle here is over, Gloria said slowly. I want to build a kingdom of death, so I need a reliable stronghold. The North County is a good choice. Can I make a suggestion? Bai Xiaowen asked. Gloria's icy blue eyes glanced at him deeply. Yes. At present, the war between the Imperial Army and the Resistance Army in the north is approaching a white-hot stage. These two factions are huge monsters to us at the moment. If we are too high-profile, no matter which faction we attract, it will be a disaster for us. Bai Xiaowen continued. The North County is indeed a big city, but its political significance is too great. It is the capital of the North. Once it is occupied by the undead, it will definitely shock the entire Yaluan continent and attract the hostility of the two camps. They might even encircle and annihilate us. Whether it is the USOC or the Imperial Army, they will not tolerate the North County becoming the headquarters of the Kingdom of Death. Gloria snorted. The living and the undead are natural opposites. Even if I don't attack the North County, they will not tolerate the existence of the Kingdom of Death. Yes, the Kingdom of Death and the two camps are natural enemies, but so far, they are only enemies. However, the Imperial Army and the Resistance Army have been fighting for a long time, and it has risen to the level of hatred. As long as we do not cause trouble, we will not be encircled by the two camps in the short term. Bai Xiaowen analyzed. Looking at the situation of the Yaluan continent, the High Elves are too far away from us. The Lionheart Empire is still the strongest camp, and the Imperial Army in the north has a strong backing. The USOC Resistance Army may be able to fight the Imperial Army in the north now, but as the Empire's elite troops enter the north, they will not be able to withstand it sooner or later. Without external intervention, the USOC's defeat is only a matter of time. Under such circumstances, we can only hope that the USOC Resistance Army will buy us enough time to develop. The North County is now occupied by the Resistance Army, and rashly starting a war with the Resistance Army is not a wise choice. If we consume our strength internally, it will only allow the strongest Imperial Army to reap the benefits. So, the best starting point for the Kingdom of Death should be here. Chapter 645. Silver Star Island? Seeing where Bai Xiaowen's finger was pointing, Li Shi called out the name of the island. From the map of the Northern Territory, it could be seen that the Northern Territory had a concave shape, and Silver Star Island was right in the middle of the concave shape. To the north was the Arctic Ocean, to the west was the Boguas Strait in the northern county, and to the east was the Shattered Ice Islands. Gloria looked at Bai Xiaowen quietly, waiting for an explanation. Bai Xiaowen was very experienced in tricking people from the spiritual realm. As for the starting point of the Kingdom of Death, he had already started thinking about it when he joined the Kingdom of Death. To be exact, it should be called the Silver Star Territory. Bai Xiaowen said, the Silver Star Territory is an isolated island. The two straits cut it off from the rest of the territories in the northern region. It is easy to defend and difficult to attack. As long as we take over the Silver Star Territory, we can develop in peace. Even if the Resistance Army and the Imperial Army want to attack the Kingdom of Death, it will be beyond their reach. After a pause, Bai Xiaowen continued, in a political sense, the Silver Star Territory takes a neutral attitude. It will not help the Imperial Army or the Resistance Army. At most, it will support the USOC verbally. If we take over the Silver Star Territory, it will not hurt the Empire or the USOC. It will not hurt their sensitive nerves. Gloria was silent for a few seconds and finally said, "You are right. The Silver Star Island is indeed the best place to start the Kingdom of Death." Although she hated the world of the living, as an intelligent leader of the undead, Gloria was not an arrogant and short-sighted fool. After Bai Xiaowen explained the pros and cons, she changed her mind. In the current state of the Kingdom of Death, it would be difficult to fight against the elite army of the Resistance Army, let alone the encirclement of the two major forces. We have to leave as soon as possible. Bai Xiaowen saw that he had succeeded in tricking Gloria, so he immediately struck while the iron was hot and said, "The changes in the mausoleum of the monastery will soon spread throughout the northern region. This place will soon become the focal point of the northern region. We have to avoid the limelight and cross the sea to Silver Star Island as soon as possible. The only problem is, how are the undead going to cross the Boguas Strait?" Gloria snorted softly, "You can rest assured about that. Undead creatures don't need to breathe and don't know fatigue. They can march at the bottom of the sea as long as each undead soldier hugs a large rock to prevent them from being carried away by the undercurrents. What about you? Why don't we go underwater as well?" Bai Xiaowen asked again. The cold energy on Gloria was too strong. She was like a walking air conditioner. It was difficult for her to disguise herself as a human being without being noticed. "I won't use such a lowly and primitive method." Gloria stretched out her index finger and pointed at the map of the Northern Territory. "Before leaving the northern county, we still have to go to this place. Here, there is an important force that my undead army needs." Bai Xiaowen followed Gloria's finger. The place she was pointing at was not far from the mountain where the Northshire Monastery was. It was a huge valley. Bone. Burial ground? Bai Xiaowen spelled out the name of the place. What would be in this place that is worth wasting our precious time on? We should leave the northern county as soon as possible. I've already reminded you of this, Gloria. If you were my servant, I would definitely punish you for your rudeness and arrogance. How dare you speak to me, the master of the Kingdom of Death, like this? Gloria expressed her dissatisfaction, then insisted, "It's worth spending a little time. The Bone Burial Ground is actually the place where the giant dragon sleeps." The rules of the spiritual world prompted, elite side quest, Tomb of the Giant Dragon, activated. Quest objective, go to the Tomb of the Giant Dragon and protect Gloria from being disturbed for 120 minutes. Quest difficulty, I+, quest time limit, 24 hours, quest reward, unknown. After the quest notification appeared, the 3 members of the White Phoenix team first had a team discussion. Li Shi, oh? Omega? Oh. There really is a dragon. Qiao Rui, Gloria's goal should be to revive the Bone Dragon? I heard that the Bone Dragon is a very powerful leader-level undead creature. Bai Xiaowen narrowed his eyes and asked Delifa, "It was you who reincarnated Gloria. Does she have the ability to revive the Bone Dragon?" It was no wonder that Bai Xiaowen asked this question. When he observed Gloria, he did not see the resurrection of the bone dragon. Delifa hesitated and said, logically speaking, it shouldn't be possible. However, Gloria is very special. She has integrated the negative power of the death curse, and she was a champion knight of God's grace when she was alive. She will be even more powerful when reincarnated as a death knight. If the two are combined, it may produce an effect that even I can't predict. Bai Xiaowen nodded and accepted the A+ class elite quest. The White Phoenix team then followed the undead army led by Gloria and moved in the direction of the tomb of the giant dragon. Along the way, Bai Xiaowen also tried to inquire about some information about this quest. After all, it was an A+ elite quest and could not be treated lightly. Gloria, what danger is there in the tomb of the giant dragon? Do we need to make some preparations? Gloria did not even turn her head. Don't worry, you won't meet a living dragon. At most, you'll meet some dragon descendants who guard the tomb. Filthy creatures with mixed blood flowing in their veins. I'll turn them into obedient soldiers. There were too many types of dragon descendants in the Western fantasy setting. Generally, they were the product of hybridization between giant dragons and other races. They belonged to the dragon species of the 6 major races. After all, the saying that dragons were lustful was not without reason. Of course, the dragon descendants themselves also had the ability to reproduce and would continue to mate with other races. This way, after generations of dilution, the dragon bloodline would become thinner and thinner. After more than a dozen generations, the descendants of the dragon descendants whose dragon bloodline was too thin could no longer be considered a dragon species. They had more obvious characteristics of other races and would be classified as another race. Needless to say, the giant dragons themselves were a representation of strength. The dragon descendants, who had a higher proportion of the dragon bloodline, also had stronger strength than creatures of the same level and were not easy to deal with. The tomb of the giant dragon buried the corpses of ancient giant dragons, which were rare treasures. Dragon bones and dragon scales were excellent materials for making armor, and dragon blood, although crystallized, was still a precious alchemy material in today's world where living giant dragons were extremely rare. Not to mention, the tomb of the giant dragon would also bury the treasures accumulated by the giant dragons throughout their lives. Chapter 646. Over time, the valley where the dragon's tomb was located became a taboo, leaving only a legend in the northern region. This legend lasted until 300 years ago. Lionheart King Tybern rose to power and formed an alliance with the 7 Grand Dukes. He fought in all directions and began his journey to unify the Yaluan continent. The legendary Grand Duke in charge of the crusade against the Viking kingdom in the northern region, Knight Lord Kevin Des, finally captured the capital of the northern region, North County City, after a bitter battle. Grand Duke Kevin Des had also heard of the rumors of the dragon's tomb. Unlike the other adventurers, this Grand Duke was not only greedy and curious, but also had a powerful ability to carry out his orders. He led the Lionheart Empire's first invincible army into the dragon's tomb and massacred the dragon's descendants guarding it, taking away a large number of dragon's treasures. In order to commemorate Grand Duke Kevin Des' military achievements, the valley where the dragon's tomb was located was called Kevin Des Valley. Following that, sporadic adventurer teams also followed in an attempt to take advantage of the situation and eat the leftovers left behind by Grand Duke Kevin Des. It was like a gold rush. There were always lucky people who picked up the treasures that were left behind, but most of them came up empty-handed. Although the dragon's descendants were greatly injured and fled, they did not die out. After decades of reproduction, they returned to the dragon's tomb. At this time, the dragon's tomb had lost its value of attracting adventurers. Due to the revival of the dragon's descendants, it was gradually forgotten. The dragon's bones in the dragon's tomb were relatively rare. Most of them had been moved away by Grand Duke Kevin Des' army. Dragon bones were high-grade materials for making armor. If not for the fact that the dragon's bones were too old and unsuitable for making armor, not a single dragon's bone would be left here. In the previous battles, a large number of dragons' descendants, Empire soldiers, and adventurers had died here. Their bones made up the majority. Therefore, Kevin Death Valley had another nickname, Burial Ground, which meant that many homeless souls were buried here. Kevin Death Valley. The heavy snow dyed the valley with a layer of silvery white. The huge Rift Valley, which was thousands of meters wide and had no end in sight, was completely covered by a thick layer of ice and snow. The White Phoenix team followed the undead army led by Gloria and advanced in the wide ice plains of the Rift Valley. After nearly 10 hours of trekking, they finally arrived at the burial ground. In order to avoid attracting too much attention and to save time, the number of undead in this operation was reduced by a lot. They only brought those agile, fast, and inconspicuous undead, such as ghosts, spider demons, and other agile elites. They all had the ability to turn invisible. Bai Xiaowen deeply felt that the A+ elite side mission this time was not simple. This was because over 30 elite undead would assist him in completing this mission. The Dragon's Tomb's difficulty, Des's Dragons Valley. As for the other undead monsters, they were hibernating in a hidden ice cave at the foot of the Northshire Monastery under Gloria's orders. Time, Rui Dragons, S and Des Rurui Lu. Rurui Day. Qiao Rui, in particular, had to explain her strengths and weaknesses to Bai Xiaowen one by one. What Bai Xiaowen was most interested in was Qiao Rui's soul rhythm. This was a weakening skill that reduced all the enemy's attributes, up to 25%. Qiao Rui's hero class equipment was actually the weapon she was holding, Soul Bamboo Flute. The Soul Bamboo Flute was the same as Bai Xiaowen's Black Soul Stone. It came with a skill tree called Sound Attack Array. The first level of Sound Attack Array, Breaking Scale. The damage was not high, but the cooldown time was very short and the consumption of mental strength was very low. It was equivalent to a basic mental attack spell. The second level of Sound Attack Array, Forbidden Scale. This was a field skill that needed to be prepared in advance. After the enemy entered the range of the Forbidden Scale, the caster could choose whether to trigger it, and the enemy would be immobilized. The third level of Sound Attack Array, Soul Rhythm. This was a powerful support skill, but the consumption of mental strength was also very high. When activating Soul Rhythm, Qiao Rui needed to consume 10 points of mental strength. Then, she needed to continue consuming mental strength. For the first 3 seconds, she would consume 1 point of mental strength per second. For every 3 seconds of Soul Rhythm, the consumption of mental strength would increase by 2 points per second. This would accumulate over the course of the battle. The specific effect of Soul Rhythm was that while she was playing, the surrounding enemies would be stacked with 1 layer of weakness every second. There was a total of 5 layers. Each layer would weaken the enemy's attributes by 5%. Based on this calculation, with Qiao Rui's current 68 points of mental strength, she could only play Soul Rhythm for a maximum of 10 seconds. If she was interrupted during this period and had to start playing again, she would need to consume an additional 10 points of mental strength. This would further reduce the playing time. Fortunately, even if she stopped playing, the weakness effect on the enemy would last for a full 10 seconds before disappearing. Based on this, Qiao Rui had already come up with an intermittent playing technique. At the beginning, she would play for 5 seconds. After stacking 5 layers of weakness on the enemy, she could pause for 10 seconds. Before the weakness effect disappeared, she would consume another 10 points of mental strength to play for 1 second. Then, she would pause for another 10 seconds. Based on this calculation, she could maintain the weakness effect on the enemy for close to 40 seconds. It was very useful in actual combat. During the pause, Qiao Rui could also move around and attack, as well as provide additional crowd control for the party. However, against a high-level leader or lord, the intermittent playing technique was not very useful. The enemy had the resilience skill. Once she stopped playing, the duration of the weakness effect would be greatly reduced. Next was the 4th level of Sound Attack Array, End Stop. This was a rare skill that could directly kill the enemy. The activation conditions were very strict. Even if the activation conditions were met, she would need to have at least 2 successful attribute judgments in her total attribute judgments to cause the death effect on the enemy. The price was that the soul bamboo flute would not be able to be used during the battle. Currently, Qiao Rui had only unearthed the 4th level of the soul bamboo flute skill tree. However, this was equivalent to giving her 4 additional top-grade skills. This was the reason why a hero class with exclusive equipment could crush an ordinary hero class without exclusive equipment. Bai Xiaowen had seen Qiao Rui's combat skills in the previous Pro League. He had the single-target soul cage and the single-target and group healing skill, Life Heal. Other than that, Qiao Rui also had 2 skills, Group Dispel and Force Wave. However, he did not use them often. To be honest, this was because Soul Rhythm consumed too much mana. This limited Qiao Rui's other skills. Qiao Rui's class was called Soul Whisperer. He had the special ability to communicate with souls. The class skill was Soul Whisper. Soul Whisper, passive. Every dead person around you, regardless of friend or foe, will allow you to recover mental strength. The amount and duration are related to the target's level. Activating Soul Whisper will allow you to obtain the effect of Soul Walk, ignores obstacles, terrain, and volume. Cannot be targeted, but requires continuous mental strength consumption. The active effect of the class skill, Soul Whisper, was very useful. Soul Walk was the most powerful life-saving skill that Bai Xiaowen had ever seen. It was different from Li Shi's Ring of Nothingness. The Ring of Nothingness allowed the user to enter a state of nothingness and become almost immune to physical attacks. However, the side effect was that the user would receive double the damage from magic attacks. Soul Walk made the user unable to be targeted, which meant that the user would not become the target of single-target attacks or skills. The user would only receive damage from AoE skills. Compared to single-target skills, AoE skills were still rare. The passive effect of Soul Whisper was also very powerful. It was similar to the passive effect of Butcher's Slaughterhouse. However, it was the mana recovery version. In summary, Qiao Rui's Soul Whisperer class had strong survivability and support abilities. Moreover, thanks to the Soul Bamboo Flute's End of Annihilation, Qiao Rui also had a certain level of solo killing ability. However, the prerequisite was that the target's attributes were suppressed by her. Because of the passive effect of the class, Qiao Rui could rely on the dead to recover her mana. Therefore, Qiao Rui was still suitable for large-scale battles. There was a steady stream of dead people around her to help her recover her mental endurance. Bai Xiaowen already had several different tactical ideas in his mind, but he still needed to test them out in real combat. I can feel that there are many dead souls here, Qiao Rui whispered to Bai Xiaowen. Well, after all, this is called the Boneyard. It's actually a big cemetery. Bai Xiaowen grinned. Look, Gloria should have found her destination. The location where they were was a huge ice lake with a radius of 1,000 meters. However, there was a layer of snow on the ice lake. It looked no different from an ice field. Gloria squatted down gently. Her right hand, which was wrapped in dark blue armor, gently brushed the surface of the ice lake and swept away the snow. Gloria's cold voice sounded. We are here. I can feel the ancient and powerful corpse waiting to be awakened. Dior, before I awaken it, no one is to disturb me. You will be in charge of all the troops under my command. Bai Xiaowen nodded. Yes, ma'am. Bai Xiaowen gradually realized that Gloria was no longer the Gloria of the past. Therefore, the way he spoke also gradually changed. Gloria stood up. She held the skeletal sword with both hands and suddenly stabbed it into the ice layer. A notification from the Spiritual Realms rules came, Level A+ Elite Mission, Tomb of the Giant Dragon officially begins. Countdown, a string of numbers representing the time jumped in Bai Xiaowen's vision. 119 minutes and 59 seconds. At the same time, Bai Xiaowen also received a second notification from the Spiritual Realms rules. He received the command of the 20 ghosts and 17 spider demons in front of him. It was a pity that his spiritual power and spiritual teacher enhancement couldn't be used on these creatures. Chapter 647. The north wind was howling. After Gloria stabbed the skeletal greatsword into the ice, the wind in the boneyard became even colder. Coldine energy surged and gathered around Gloria. According to Xiao Rui, she could feel that the souls wandering around the burial ground were becoming restless. The energy of the souls was being guided by Gloria and poured into the ice lake wave after wave. At first, it was not obvious, but as time went by, the cold air around Gloria condensed, and even dark clouds appeared in the sky. The dark clouds gradually condensed into a vortex, and at the center of the vortex was Gloria's skeletal sword. The cold soul energy was continuously injected into the sword, and 2 blue soul fires lit up in the eye sockets of the skull on the sword. Bai Xiaowen finally understood why the Dragon's Tomb mission generated by the rules of the spiritual realm was given an A+ rating. Originally, he thought that he could sneak into the village, steal a dragon's corpse, and run away. He might be able to slip away before the tomb guards found out. Who knew that Gloria's awakening process would be so big that it could cause a phenomenon in the sky? At this point, the Dragonkin Guardians would have to be blind or deaf to not see this. Soon, a group of lizard men rushed over. These lizard men looked like upright lizards. Their heads retained the characteristics of lizards, and even their tongues were forked. Their bodies were slender like lizards, but their limbs were thick and strong. They had human-like palms, but their nails were unusually sharp. Lowly, ants, do not disturb, sleeping dragons. The leader of the group, a green-scaled lizard man, scolded in a short and rhythmic tone. Misunderstanding, it's all a misunderstanding. We are here to burn incense. Bai Xiaowen said something very unconvincing to test the intelligence of these dragon monsters. He casually used insight on him. Steel eyes, elite level 7, race, humanoid/lizard man, profession, winter warrior, attributes, STR 30, DX 44, Con 32, WIL 14, skill 1, rotten claws, race passive ability. The lizardman's sharp claws and bites will infect the target with rotten toxins, continuously losing HP. This effect can be stacked. Skill 2, Extreme Survival, passive. Lizard men will hibernate when they lack food, greatly reducing their energy consumption. Lizard men ignore the instant kill effect caused by Vital Strike. Skill 3, Flurry Dance. Lizard men enter a berserk state and perform multiple flurry dance attacks on a cone-shaped melee area in front of them. Unable to move during this process. Skill 4, Dragon Bloodline LV1, HP increases by an additional 100 points. Bai Xiaowen waved his hand and said in the party channel, their attributes are balanced, their strength is average, and they don't have any outstanding skills. The lizardman's racial passive is Corrosive Claw, which is countered by the Butcher. Save some of your stamina and mental strength. I'll take care of them. Then I'll be lazy. Xiao Rui said. Good luck, Xiaowen. Li Shui waved his fist. At this moment, the green-scaled lizard man Steel Eye also realized that he had been tricked by Bai Xiaowen. Shred. Steel Eye shouted this word with his mouth full of fine sharp teeth. After that, he took the lead and pounced on Bai Xiaowen. Fatty, show this group of low-level creatures what a poison attack is. Bai Xiaowen raised his hand and with a loud bang, the Butcher landed in the middle of the group of lizard men. 2 lizard men were crushed on the spot, and a purplish-black fog spread out. It took more than 10 hours to travel from the North County Monastery to the Boneyard. The 12-hour cooldown of the Return of the Dead was over. The Butcher and the dead skeletal swordsman could be summoned again. Bai Xiaowen's strength had been completely restored. The lizard men guarding the Boneyard did not use weapons like swords or sabers. They only had natural sharp teeth and claws. In the past, the poison attached to their teeth and claws could stack damage, which was very troublesome. However, the Butcher, who had the Poison Fang Priest set, was their natural nemesis and could reduce most of the poison damage. However, the poison damage caused by the butcher's purplish-black fog was something that the lizard men could not resist. Their movement speed was reduced, and their HP was also decreasing. Moreover, the butcher's rotting poison was mainly used to reduce the enemy's damage output and defense. The lizard men were shocked to find that the high defense scales that they were so proud of had become much weaker. A light slash could leave a sizable wound. The skeletal swordsmen and shieldsmen advanced together. Their iron swords flashed with cold light as they chopped at the lizard men. After Steel Eye died, he dropped a silver treasure chest. At this time, the remaining lizard men wanted to escape, but Bai Xiaowen's skeletal warriors blocked their path. With a whirlwind slash, they were knocked back. As the last lizard man fell, the battle ended. Li Shi. Xiaowen, you're awesome. Qiao Rui stood beside Li Shi and laughed. This is the feeling of a thigh. It's really comfortable. Bai Xiaowen shook his head helplessly. Don't joke around. The dragon blood in these lizard men should be very thin. Their attributes are not bad, but their skills are too weak. They are weaker than creatures of the same level and template. It's obvious that they are humanoid creatures and not dragons. At most, they are just appetizers. This team of lizard men actually only had 2 or 3 elite monsters. Most of the rest were normal monsters. Not to mention Bai Xiaowen or Li Shi, even Qiao Rui who assisted in positioning could deal with them. However, it would take a lot of effort. Bai Xiaowen opened the silver treasure chest of the lizard man leader, Steel Eye. This guy was really poor. He only had 12 silver cards. Bai Xiaowen's only chance to draw a B-grade item. Shrunken liver, B-grade item. After use, it can apply poison to weapons. Lasts for 30 minutes. The weapon's attack will have a corrosive effect. This effect can be stacked. Disappears after use. It's a one-time use poison item. The grade is a little low, but the effect shouldn't be too bad. Bai Xiaowen handed the item to Li Shi to use. This kind of multi-stacking item was definitely the right choice to give it to Li Shi, who had fast attack speed. By the way, I have a large area control item here. It should come in handy. Qiao Rui took out an item and handed it to Bai Xiaowen. Bai Xiaowen looked at it. Vine Field, S-grade item. After use, it can create an area densely covered with vines. The radius is the user's level *10, unit, meter. All enemies in the area will be restrained for 10 seconds and will be entangled. This item is pretty good. It can control groups for a long time and deal damage. Bai Xiaowen praised, how did Sister Qiao get this item? S-grade items are usually dropped by leaders. It won't be easy for a support class to kill a leader. Qiao Rui said, in the past, every time I ventured into the spirit world, there were always 2 people accompanying me. It was considered a semi-permanent team. Bai Xiaowen suddenly understood. Qiao Rui had great potential. The Qiao family must have put in a lot of effort to nurture her. Why would they let a support class like her venture into the spirit world? It was normal for them to send awakened experts to form a temporary team with Qiao Rui to explore the spirit world. Moreover, most of them were military elites who played the role of nannies. As for the psionic points needed to form a temporary team, it was probably nothing to the Qiao family. Bai Xiaowen wanted to ask Qiao Rui if she knew about Starlink, but he held back. If Qiao Rui didn't know, he would be punished by the spirit world's rules. No matter what the punishment was, Bai Xiaowen didn't want to bear it. Wouldn't that be courting death for no reason? Then this item should be able to be used in the league, right? Li Shi still had a deep impression of the CUAA finals 2 months ago. Fortunately, Sister Qiao didn't use this item. Qiao Rui shook her head and smiled without saying anything. Bai Xiaowen didn't take the item. He waved his hand and said, this item shouldn't be needed for this mission. Sister Qiao, just keep it. Qiao Rui said curiously, this is an A+ elite side quest. The most difficult mission I've ever done is an A+ elite side quest, and the completion rate is relatively low. In fact, Xiao Rui had been very surprised after Gloria's resurrection and the Lord-level mission, the Rise of the Death Lord. This was the first time she had encountered a Lord-level mission. However, Xiao Rui had a more intellectual and introverted personality. Even if her heart was in turmoil, she just smiled on the surface and didn't reveal too much emotion. Without needing Bai Xiaowen to say anything, Li Shi waved his hand and said, "Relax, relax. Sister Qiao, you don't have to be so nervous. It's just an A+ elite side quest." Xiao Rui looked at Bai Xiaowen. Seeing that he also looked relaxed, she couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. She suddenly remembered the first time they met in the mausoleum. It seemed that Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi had just completed 2 S-level and above elite side quests. One of them was even a scavenger mission. Well, it seems that I underestimated the strength of a strong backer. It seems that I've joined a very impressive team. Xiao Rui smiled happily. Then, Captain Junior Xiaowen, what do you need me to do? Just tell me. Bai Xiaowen thought for a moment and said, "Let's do the reconnaissance work first. I remember that Sister Qiao has a reconnaissance skill. How long can it last?" Xiao Rui showed Bai Xiaowen one of her equipment. It was an emerald green shoulder pad on her shoulder. The shoulder pad was decorated with intertwining vines and flowers and leaves. It looked as if it had just been plucked from the forest and exuded a fresh aura. It was a gold equipment called Alert Perch. It added 3 points of vitality and a skill called Spirit of the Falcon. Spirit of the Falcon, summon a spirit falcon that shares your vision. It can fly long distances. The spirit falcon's HP is fixed at 50 points. It has no attack power and is permanently invisible, priority 3. The summoned spirit falcon can fly for 60 minutes. After that, it will return to the alert perch to rest for 8 hours. If the spirit falcon does not return normally, it will take 3 days to summon it again. Bai Xiaowen nodded in understanding. It lasts for 1 hour. The normal cooldown is 8 hours. If it doesn't return normally, for example, if it is killed or it doesn't return after 60 minutes, it will take 72 hours to revive. Have you tested the flying limit of this spirit falcon? Xiao Rui nodded. The maximum altitude is about 120 meters. If it flies higher, it will continue to lose HP. There is no limit to the flying distance. No matter how far it flies, it shares my vision. It just has to leave some time for it to return. If the spirit falcon kept flying in one direction at full speed for 40 minutes, it would not be able to return to Xiao Rui's shoulder pad, the alert perch, in the remaining 20 minutes. It would take 3 days to summon it again. Generally speaking, this situation should be avoided as much as possible. This equipment has a high strategic value. It is also very useful in the competition. It can help the team grasp the opponent's movements, Bai Xiaowen said with a smile. We lost to it in the past. Xiao Rui pursed her lips slightly. Yeah, you killed it in the second round. Bai Xiaowen smiled awkwardly but politely. Do you want to summon the spirit falcon now? Li Shi asked. No, Gloria wants us to hold on for 120 minutes. I guess the difficulty of this mission will increase over time. The later it is, the more monsters there will be. We can relax a little in the first hour and go all out in the second hour. It won't be too late to summon the spirit falcon to grasp the situation on the battlefield, Bai Xiaowen said. Not long after, another group of dragonkin monsters was attracted to the scene. It was a group of strong earth dragons. However, the earth dragons were the same as the lizard men. The dragon bloodline in their bodies was very thin. They could not even be considered dragon creatures. They could only be classified as wild beasts or land beasts. The earth dragon in the lead was much larger than the other earth dragons. Its thick skin even had black scales on it. It was a commander tier monster that was not discounted. Bai Xiaowen looked at its information. It was called the Black-Scaled Earth Dragon Commander. It was actually a high-level boss with 75 points of constitution. In addition, it had a passive skill called Toughness, which increased its health points by an additional 25% and reduced all damage by 25%. Including the additional health points from the general skills of the high-level boss monster, the total health points of this monster commander had exceeded the 1,200 mark. Li Shi and Xiao Rui stood up. This battle could not be left to Bai Xiaowen alone to avoid the loss of the summoned creatures. Spread out, avoid the trample and brutal charge. Bai Xiaowen shared the information of the black-scaled Earth Dragon commander with the team, then said, "This guy will stay for the last. I will let the butcher hold it back. Let's eliminate its underlings first." Under Bai Xiaowen's mind control, the elite undead creatures that Gloria gave him quietly disappeared in their invisible state. They crept behind the Earth Dragons and took the lead to attack them. After being attacked by these elite undead creatures, the drop rate of the treasure chests and the value of the loot would decrease after death. Bai Xiaowen would never let them touch the commander-tier monsters. However, it did not matter if they were used to attack the elite Earth Dragons. Anyway, the drop rate of the elite treasure chests was not high and the value itself was very low. Bai Xiaowen's main purpose of killing the elites was to collect the soul essence. Xiao Rui played the soul rhythm. Gloria, who was hiding behind the summoned creatures, was very safe. Chapter 648. Bang! Bai Xiaowen's first shot was still powerful. It hit the eye socket of an elite Earth Dragon and split its skull open. Blood and brain matter splattered everywhere. A critical hit that exceeded 1/3 of the dragon's maximum HP. It was an instant kill. At the same time, Bai Xiaowen's body glowed with a faint red light. He had entered the brutal mode after bloodlust was triggered. He changed targets with every shot. He specifically targeted the Earth Dragons with full HP. Every shot was sure to trigger bloodlust's true damage. At this time, Bai Xiaowen's critical hit rate was not to be underestimated. The 8% critical hit rate of a level 3 elite team, the 10% critical hit rate after bloodlust was triggered, and Bai Xiaowen's own little bit of dexterity gave him a critical hit rate of over 20%. Every few shots, there would be a critical hit. Moreover, with the support of his level 7 shooting specialty, Bai Xiaowen basically hit the Drake's vital points. Almost every time he triggered a critical hit, he would directly kill an elite Drake. While Xiao Rui played and weakened the Earth Dragons, he was also secretly shocked by Bai Xiaowen's performance. Although he was a guest long-range shooter, compared to Senior Colonel Yan's team's shooter Xiaoyisen, Bai Xiaowen seemed to be more ferocious. As a sniper, Xiaoyisen could also kill a Earth Dragon with one shot, but that required a long time to aim and accumulate power. The interval between shots was too long, and it was far less efficient than Bai Xiaowen's killing. On the other side, Li Shi's performance was also very eye-catching. She and Bai Xiaowen understood each other's strengths and weaknesses, and their coordination was seamless. As for the Earth Dragons with full HP, Li Shi didn't even touch a finger. They were all left to Bai Xiaowen to trigger the Blood Essence Stone's first blood enhancement effect. She targeted the Earth Dragon that Bai Xiaowen did not kill in one shot. It did not trigger a critical hit, so it did not meet the condition of 1/3 of the Earth Dragon's maximum HP. She waved her two swords and efficiently cut the Earth Dragon's meat to finish it off. Li Shi wasn't as violent as Bai Xiaowen's one-shot kills. She took the path of continuous damage output. As her agility increased, her attack speed became faster and faster, and her swordsmanship was precise. Almost all the ground dragons within her melee range were blinded as soon as they came face to face with her. Manic Charge even accidentally hurt the other ground dragons around her. While Bai Xiaowen was attacking, he was also manipulating the elite undead creatures to help Li Shi deal the finishing blow. Their primary goal was to reduce the number of ground dragons. The battle continued, and the Earth Dragons fell one after another. The black-scaled Earth Dragon commander let out a long howl and charged forward, but it was firmly blocked by the Butcher. The Butcher's HP wasn't much lower than the black-scaled Earth Dragon's, and his survivability was similarly high. It was like a blood and flesh gate, blocking the black-scaled Earth Dragon commander's path. In the end, the black-scaled Earth Dragon Commander was just a constant-type boss. Its strength and agility were not high, so the Butcher could easily intercept it. Of course, if the black-scaled Earth Dragon Commander was a strength or agility type, the Butcher could not rely on his own strength to block it. But at that time, Bai Xiaowen's tactical thinking would change. He would kill the boss first, then clean up the mess, and the battle would end faster. After the last elite Earth Dragon fell, Bai Xiaowen ordered Gloria's elite undead to withdraw from the battlefield and hide again. He commanded the summoned creatures, together with Li Shuyi and Xiao Rui, to surround and kill the boss. The quest time has passed for an hour. It would be great if the next hour was as easy as this. Li Shuyi got behind the black-scaled Earth Dragon Commander and stabbed it repeatedly to bleed it, looking relaxed and happy. Suddenly, the black-scaled Earth Dragon Commander swung its thick, long tail. The barbed tailbone was like a mace, bombarding Li Shuyi. Li Shuyi was really surprised. She crossed her two swords in a cross, trying to block the attack. With a clang, she received a lot of recoil damage and staggered back 2 steps. Including the HP she lost to the Earth Dragons before, she now had less than half of her HP left. Xiao Rui raised her hand and used heal on Li Shuyi. Instantly, Li Shuyi's HP rose to 90%. Li Shuyi, leave the bosses back and attack from the side. Many beast bosses have a tail-sweeping action. Being behind is just as dangerous as being in front. Li Shuyi hurriedly nodded. She was actually under a lot of pressure. Bai Xiaowen and Xiao Rui were powerful heroes with exclusive equipment. She was only an elite. If she did not want to be a burden to the White Phoenix team, she had to raise her own standards. She should not have made the previous mistake. Fortunately, the reward of the SS-tier elite scavenger quest, the purified divine power residue, gave Li Shuyi hope for further improvement. After reminding Li Shuyi, Bai Xiaowen gave Xiao Rui a thumbs up as a sign of praise. He thought to himself. Xiao Rui's addition had indeed increased the team's upper limit. Even the margin for error had increased a lot. Xiao Rui responded with a gentle smile. She had always remembered Bai Xiaowen's instructions. Seeing that there was only an hour left, she immediately knocked on her shoulder and summoned the spirit of the falcon. With a clear eagle cry, an almost transparent shadow of a falcon flew into the sky. Only Xiao Rui and her teammates could see the blurry shadow. The others could not see the spirit of the falcon at all. It was in a permanent state of invisibility. With a plop, the black-scaled drake boss fell to the ground and died. This battle was much easier than before. The battle score was only C because the boss was only level 7. 2 heroes and 1 elite were involved in the siege, and all of them were level 6. Bai Xiaowen immediately opened the golden treasure chest that dropped and drew it. He flipped the golden card over. Good heavens, a big black hammer full of barbs appeared. Terrain Dragonbone Spike Hammer, binds after pickup, equipment grade, hero, gold, equipment position, 2-handed, equipment requirements, base strength 40, attributes, additional attack power 16 to 40, additional skills, armor penetration, passive. When attacking with this weapon, ignore 40 to 80% of the target's armor. The lower the target's armor, the higher the percentage of armor penetration. Durability description: the drake that runs rampant in the ice field has 3 terrifying weapons, a strong jaw, heavy claws, and a barbed tail hammer. In addition to this weapon, the treasure chest also dropped a special item that did not belong to the list of loot, wyvern blood. Bai Xiaowen had seen this item before. It increased the maximum HP based on the base constitution. It was definitely a good item. It could be seen that the spiritual realm's evaluation of this battle was between C and B. Therefore, when it gave a C rating, it also gave an additional drop of wyvern blood as compensation. However, the 3 of them were attracted by the bone spike hammer. The additional attack power of this hammer is quite high. It's comparable to some heavy polearm weapons, Bai Xiaowen said. The key is the additional armor penetration passive skill. It's really strong. The only pity is that it has a base strength of 40 points. Those who meet the requirement are basically awakened ones who are close to level 10 or high-level hero classes. This is a graduation equipment. Qiao Rui's evaluation was brief, but her judgment was definitely right. It's worth trading. According to the distribution method that the three of them had discussed after the team was formed, they would distribute according to their needs and put the unwanted items into the shared storage space. The bone spike hammer was kept by Bai Xiaowen. After some discussion, the wyvern blood was given to Li Shui. Normal teams might ask for psionic points in bidding mode, but the three members of the White Phoenix team did not care about psionic points. It was not good to be calculative. The reason for giving the wyvern blood to Li Shui was very simple. After this adventure, Li Shui would have to go through the hero's trial alone. If she succeeded, both her and the White Phoenix team's strength would increase greatly. Therefore, items that could increase her success rate should be left to her as much as possible. Xiaowen, my experience bar is full. I can reach level 7 now, Li Shui said happily. Don't level up. Bai Xiaowen had thought about this problem. She immediately shook her head. Going from level 6 to level 7 is a very important upgrade. Your strength will greatly improve. I think you should be stuck at your level for now. You can level up after the hero trial and accept the trial mission. Qiao Rui nodded and said, that's right. When the spiritual realm rules determine the difficulty of the mission, it is based on the current strength of the receiver. After you accept the mission and reach level 7, your chances of passing the hero trial will be greatly improved. Okay, I'll listen to you guys. Unfortunately, my experience bar is full now. I can't get the experience from killing monsters and completing missions. Lord-level missions. These are all fleeting clouds. Upgrading the template is the way to go. This time, Sister Qiao and I can't help you. You have to rely on yourself, Shi. Bai Xiaowen waved her hand and concluded, I think the spiritual realm rules require the hero class to be independent. When I helped you with the class change mission, I got a perfect evaluation, but in the end, I didn't get the hero class. I only got the rare elite class. It was a little strange back then. Now, the hero trial mission requires you to complete it alone. This has finally solved one of my doubts. Li Shi also became serious. I'll work hard. Captain, Junior, let's put the hero trial aside. We have trouble. Qiao Rui closed her eyes slightly and then opened them. More monsters are coming? According to the rules of this mission, the third wave of monsters should be stronger than the land dragons, Bai Xiaowen said. Chapter 649. After getting Bai Xiaowen's permission, Qiao Rui gently touched Bai Xiaowen's forehead with one hand. Their mental powers were connected, and they shared the vision of the spirit of the falcon. This was one of the uses of mental powers by the awakened who specialized in mental power. Similar to mental scanning and mental telepathy, it was an ability that was not included in the attribute panel. Bai Xiaowen saw the bird's eye view of the spirit of the falcon. On the vast icy land, groups of monsters were rushing toward the frozen lake along different paths. They had a humanoid body but were covered in fine scales. Aside from the fact that their legs were replaced with snake tails, they were similar to the Nagas in other aspects. They were a group of snow kobolds with short bodies and grayish-white manies. The gnolls who were much thicker than the snow kobolds and looked like an enlarged version of the kobolds. There were also the lizard men and ground dragons that they had encountered before. In addition, Bai Xiaowen also saw a few pure-blooded Dragonians in the group. There was a big difference between the Dragonians and the half-Dragonians. The Dragonians' body shape was a bit like a fat version of a kangaroo. They had big buttocks and thick tails, and they relied on their short and powerful hind legs to stand. Their two front legs had transformed into flexible and powerful arms like humans, but with scales and sharp nails. The Dragonians' bloodline was purer than that of other dragonkin groups. Moreover, they were relatively stronger and had a higher status when they were of the same level and template. There were at least 400 to 500 monsters in the dozen or so groups. Although they were advancing along different routes, their destination was the center of the frozen lake. It seemed that they would arrive at the same time. A few Dragonians played the role of leaders and supervisors, scolding the snow kobolds and gnolls to speed up their advance. Qiao Rui retracted his hand, and Bai Xiaowen opened his eyes. Well, it's a little different from what I expected. The dragonkin monsters don't seem to be attacking in waves. Instead, they're going to flatten us in one wave, Bai Xiaowen said. With the speed of the monsters' march, they'll reach the battlefield in a few minutes. What should we do? This place is too flat. It's not an ideal terrain for a defensive battle, Bai Xiaowen said. Fortunately, we're above the ice lake. Let's destroy the terrain as soon as possible and create obstacles. Within a radius of 30 meters around Gloria, the skeleton swordsman spread out and cleared the snow on the surface of the ice lake with the elite undead creatures, revealing the ice below. The skeleton warrior swung its greatsword and slashed at the ice surface, creating a crack. Then, a few skeleton swordsmen cooperated with it and lifted a large piece of ice, revealing the lake water that was slightly rippling with steam. Li Shi and Qiao Rui also came over to help. The other undead creatures were divided into small groups. Under the control of Bai Xiaowen, they continuously cut open the ice surface, dug out large ice blocks, and piled them together. Regardless of whether it was a spirit world creature or an awakened one, they were all existences with extraordinary strength and could easily break through ice. Within a few minutes, the originally flat ice lake had changed its appearance. Large chunks of ice were piled together in a planned manner, and the excavated ice quickly froze under the low temperature. In the end, it formed a circular fortification with a radius of 30 meters, leaving only an entrance less than 2 meters wide. 30 meters away, a large ice hole was dug into the ice surface, revealing the Emerald Lake water. Although the lake water quickly froze into a new layer of thin ice due to the low temperature, this thin ice was more deceptive. Once the less intelligent dragonkin monsters stepped on it, they would fall into the lake as if they had fallen into a trap. Under the protection of such a circular fortification and obstacle terrain, the White Phoenix team of 3 felt a lot safer psychologically. Seeing the slowly approaching group of monsters, they were not so nervous. What lay before the dragonkin monsters was the bumpy surface of the ice. The huge dark cloud vortex that attracted them fell at the center of the circular ice wall. Obviously, the one who desecrated the ancient ancestor's corpse was hiding behind the circular ice wall. Intruders, stop your crimes at once. A strong dragonkin with dark blue scales shouted angrily. Bai Xiaowen showed his face behind the ice wall. We're here for archaeology. Can't you give us some face? Qiao Rui shook his head helplessly. Li Shi was overjoyed. After his identity as an outsider, that is, an awakened one, was exposed, Bai Xiaowen began to let himself loose in front of the natives of the Aran Plain. The Dragonkin's intelligence was obviously much higher than that of the lizard men from before. Bai Xiaowen's insincere words did not delay them at all. Instead, it angered them. Servants. In the name of Nikitas, kill all these intruders. Roar. More than a dozen dragonkin monsters roared angrily and strode toward the circular ice wall. However, the obstacles dug out by Bai Xiaowen's summoned creatures played an obvious role. These monsters had no choice but to go around the ice hole or jump over it. The originally uniformed charge became messy and crowded. More than one monster was pushed into the lake. Although they did not drown or freeze to death, it still caused a lot of trouble for the monster's progress. From the fluctuations of the psionic particles, there are a total of 4 high-level leaders. The strongest is that dragonkin boss, Qiao Rui said. Bai Xiaowen nodded. He had already used insight. The 4 high-level leaders were the Kobold Diviner Mi Bo, the Gnoll leader Hog, the half-Dragonkin leader Maki, and the final commander-in-chief, the Dragonkin leader Nikitas. The Kobold Diviner Mi Bo's attributes are average. Only his bloodlust is worth paying attention to. The Gnoll leader Hog is a strength-type warrior, but he has a sneak attack skill. The half-Dragonkin leader is an agility type and can move stealthily. Be careful of his poison. Bai Xiaowen briefly explained the first 3 leaders. Finally, he shared the information of the final boss, the Dragonkin leader Nikitas. Nikitas, leader level 8, race, Dragon/Dragonkin, class, Blade Scale Striker, attributes, STR-75, DX-32, Con 50, WIL 26, Skill 1, Cleave, omitted, Skill 2, Crush, shake the ground, stunning enemies within melee range and dealing physical damage to them. Enemy creatures smaller than half of Nikita's size will receive double the stun duration and additional damage. Skill 3, Dragon Scale Weapon, passive, Nikita's weapon attack is increased by 50% and ignores 40% of the target's armor. Skill 4, Frost Breath, Nikita's exhales a cold breath, causing chilling effect to enemies within a cone in front of him, dealing frost damage and reducing their movement speed. Lasts for 12 seconds. Chapter 650. This level 8 leader was obviously a strength-type player. It had 75 points of strength and 50 points of vitality. Including the passive effect of the dragon bloodline, it had a total of 1000 HP. As a pure-blooded dragonoid, its attributes were much stronger than a leader of the same level. Bai Xiaowen also paid attention to the other elite dragonoids. Without exception, they all had excellent attributes. Soon, the first batch of monsters crossed the obstacle and arrived at the circular ice wall. Bang! Bai Xiaowen shot one of the elite gnolls, blinding one of its eyes. The battle had begun. The monsters wanted to climb the circular ice wall, but the ice was slippery, and Bai Xiaowen's party was obstructing them. They were all beaten and slid down. Some of the monsters were strong and agile, such as a few elite gnolls. They bent their legs slightly and jumped a few meters into the ice wall. But this was a brainless method. They were surrounded and attacked by the undead creatures as soon as they entered. Li Shi came like the wind to finish them off. They didn't even make a splash. As for the 2-meter-wide gap in the circular ice wall, it was the main point of attack of the monsters. However, the butcher's huge body stood at the gap like a wall. The monsters couldn't advance at all. The rotten butcher was the father of most of the close combat monsters. The best part was that there weren't many long-range monsters among these monsters. After all, they weren't a well-trained and coordinated army. They were just a group of grave-guarding dragonoid monsters, an alliance of different races. Whoosh! A sharp arrow with ice flowers shot over and pierced a deep bloody hole in the butcher's stomach. This attack caused about 100 points of damage. It was the Kobold Clairvoyant, the only spiritual-type boss in this group of monsters. Originally, the Kobold Clairvoyant's damage was much higher than that. However, Bai Xiaowen had already discovered that the Kobold Clairvoyant's 2 offensive skills, Earth Spike and Rock Pierce, were only effective on the ground. Since they were in a frozen lake, the Kobold Clairvoyant's 2 skills were useless, so Bai Xiaowen did not pay much attention to them. From the looks of it, the Kobold Clairvoyant was still able to cast Stone Piercing. However, after replacing the stone spikes with ice spikes, the damage had decreased significantly. Otherwise, even if the butcher had a certain damage reduction ability, a high-level magic-type boss's skill would not only deal 100 points of damage. If that's the case, let's kill this kobold first. Bai Xiaowen stood on the inner side of the ice wall, stepping on the ice steps that had been specially made. He raised his Desert Eagle at the Kobold Clairvoyant. Bang! At the same time, the deterrence skill was used. Although the Kobold Clairvoyant Mibo had sensed the danger and dodged, the instantaneous effect of the deterrence skill had delayed its reaction by half a beat, and it had been shot in the eye. Vital Strike. The thirst for slaughter. Blood splattered from one of Mibo's eyes. The intense pain caused the kobold boss to shriek in pain. However, following the bullet was a meat hook. Under Bai Xiaowen's control, the butcher threw the meat hook at a tricky angle. It pierced through the Kobold Clairvoyant Mibo's bow-like legs and wrapped around it a few times. The butcher then exerted force and dragged the kobold clairvoyant Meebo back, leaving a long trail of blood in the air. Before the kobold clairvoyant Meebo could land on the ground, a figure as agile as a female leopard slammed into it, knocking its small body into the air once again. It was Li Shi who had activated Brutal Tackle, followed by Triple Slash with his 2 swords. Qiao Rui's broken cadence and Bai Xiaowen's second bullet all followed. There was also the Necromancer's lightning strike, and the butcher's giant serpent scepter that was charging up high. After a series of damage numbers, the kobold clairvoyant Meebo was smashed into the ice by the butcher's staff. Its neck was a little twisted from the impact. The kobold clairvoyant Meebo's eyes bulged as it stood up unsteadily. It opened its mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood and broken teeth. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Li Shi stepped behind the kobold boss and attacked it violently again. This level 7 kobold boss only had around 600 HP, including the advanced leader's general skill. After being focused on, its HP was quickly depleted and it died. Who told you to spit on us? Li Shi reached out and grabbed the golden treasure chest that the kobold clairvoyant Meebo had dropped. He then kicked its small body over. The snow kobolds that had rushed over were terrified when they saw their leader being chopped up like vegetables. They didn't dare to move forward. Charge, charge! You lowly beasts! The dragonoid leader Nikitas waved the giant blade in his hand that glowed with a dim light. He shouted loudly and kicked the snow kobold in front of him away. The other elite dragonoids followed suit and commanded the dragonkin monsters to continue attacking. After killing the kobold clairvoyant Meebo, Bai Xiaowen heaved a sigh of relief. This guy had a skill called Bloodlust. After using it, the kobolds under his command would be emboldened. They wouldn't run away, and their attack power would be greatly increased. It would be very troublesome if he used this skill during a critical battle. This was because the snow kobolds made up the majority of the dragonkin monsters surrounding them. There were more than 100 of them, but they were all normal models. Bai Xiaowen couldn't figure out why the kobolds had the bloodline of the colossal dragons. Groups of dragonkin monsters squeezed past the obstacles and crashed into the ice wall, trying to break the circular ice wall. However, when Bai Xiaowen was building the defensive ice wall, he had fully considered the destructive power of the spiritual world monsters. These ice walls were built from blocks of thick ice. The thickness of the wall was more than 1 meter, so it wouldn't be broken so easily. Moreover, the monsters had to cross the obstacles to reach the ice wall. Large monsters like the earth dragons couldn't accumulate enough force to break the ice wall. The monsters could only scratch with their sharp claws and slash with their weapons when they got close to the ice wall, slowly destroying it. However, during this process, the undead creatures standing behind the ice wall were not idle. The spitting attacks of the spider demons and the hurling attacks of the elite ghosts never stopped, constantly inflicting wounds on the monsters. One monster after another fell under the ice wall. As for the gap in the ice wall, needless to say, the butcher was as steady as Mount Tai. The ground in front of him was littered with monster corpses. The defensive battle lasted for more than 20 minutes. Although the monsters suffered heavy casualties, the ice wall was also on the verge of collapse. All clan leaders, charge with me. Kill these sinners who blaspheme our ancestors. I want to smear their blood on my face. The dragonoid leader Nikitas, who had been supervising the battle, shouted loudly. Chapter 651. Despite his complaints, this dragonoid leader still had a certain level of strategic knowledge. The monsters killed by the White Phoenix team were basically cannon fodder troops like the snow kobolds. Together with some old and weak gnolls, most of them were ordinary trash. Almost half of the monsters had died in battle, but only a few dozen elite monsters had died. Of course, the kobold leader Meebo was the most unlucky. He was lured back by the vengeful butcher because he lost a spike spell and was chopped to death. He was the only leader to die. The advantage of the monsters in numbers was completely useless in the ice cave terrain that the White Phoenix team had deliberately created. Therefore, the Dragonoid leader Nikitas sent away a group of weaklings to deplete the strength of the White Phoenix team and at the same time make room for the real elite troops. The Dragonoids and Draconoids drove the ground dragons, elite gnolls, and other vassal races to charge at the ice wall. Some of the injured kobolds were trampled over by their allies because they did not make way in time. Boom, boom. A series of dull sounds were heard. The combined force of a few elite ground dragons caused cracks to appear on the ice wall. Gaewu, with a roar, the gnoll leader Hog leaped high and slashed down with the scimitar in his hand. With the infusion of force, he forcefully created a 2-foot-wide gap in the ice wall. This was an ice wall that was more than a meter thick. More than a dozen strong elite gnolls rushed over like sharks that had smelled blood. They waved their claws and blades continuously, constantly cutting open the ice and quickly widening the gap. With a loud boom, the ice wall was surrounded by monsters and collapsed. The two sides clashed. Sister Qiao, cast Soul Rhythm. I'll let Delifa hold this gnoll back. Shui, follow me and focus fire on that Draconoid boss. Bai Xiaowen said in the team channel. Qiao Rui nodded. She raised her emerald soul bamboo flute and the faint sound of the flute spread. All enemies in a large area began to suffer the weakening effect of the soul rhythm. In a flash of light, the soul catcher Delifa appeared. She put her hands together and then separated them, and a spiritualized spear appeared. A poisonous snake-like spike pierced towards the throat of the gnoll leader Hog. Hog simply looked down on this banshee that was only at the elite level. He swung his scimitar, intending to parry the spear. Although the Jack-Allen leader was a wild beast, its combat skills were not weak. It had become an instinct after countless killings. Once the parry was successful, Hog's scimitar would quickly slash along the shaft of the spear, and his entire body would quickly close the distance, making the opponent's polearm unable to display its advantage. Moreover, Hog even felt that he didn't need to be so careful in battle. How much strength could an elite enemy have? If the parry was successful, the opponent would definitely be stunned by the recoil damage. At that time, all he had to do was to slash at him. However, when Hog habitually parried with his scimitar, Delifa's wrist suddenly shook slightly, and the spiritualized spear suddenly trembled. The tip of the spear turned into a few cold stars and covered the vital parts of Hog's upper body. Hog's parry this time undoubtedly failed. Delifa's spear changed its direction and stabbed Hog in the chest. Apart from the damage to his vital parts, he was also hit with a severe bleeding status. This was not the suppression of agility, but the suppression of combat skills. Oh whoa! Hog's ferocious nature was stimulated by the sight of blood. He howled and jumped up, raised his scimitar with both hands, and slashed heavily. Delifa pulled out her spear, flapped the wings on her back, and very agilely moved to the side. Hog's attack was successfully dodged. Delifa used the inertia of the opponent's attack to suddenly press down on Hog's scimitar. Hog's scimitar suddenly accelerated and slashed into the ice, creating another crack in the ice. This slash seemed powerful, but in fact, it exposed a huge flaw. By the time Hog pulled his scimitar out of the ice crack, Delifa stabbed him with her spear. This time, the spear directly pierced his throat. Although the severe bleeding status effect could not be stacked, attacks aimed at vital parts of the throat ignored defense. Qiao Rui looked at Delifa with some surprise, and said in the party channel, "This banshee is very powerful. If she had Hog's strength, I'm afraid those two spears would have been enough to kill him instantly." Bai Xiaowen said, "Delifa's polearm combat skills are indeed very strong. She may have reached the limit of the awakened level, which is level 10. Previously, Delifa had demonstrated her powerful melee combat skills in the process of killing the snow wolf. However, the snow wolf was, after all, weak. Bai Xiaowen could only deduce that Delifa had a polearm combat skill that was around level 8. Now, however, Delifa could still maintain the upper hand against Hog, a high-level boss whose attributes were superior to hers. Naturally, Bai Xiaowen raised his judgment of Delifa's strength. After suffering several losses, Hog finally realized that the banshee in front of him was not easy to deal with. He abandoned his scimitar and pounced forward. As the blood-red aura spread, he used a combat skill, Frenzied Bite. Although Delpha's melee combat skills were very strong, she only had the attributes of a rare elite, strengthened elite, level 6. This was her weakness. It was impossible for her to fight a high-level boss one-on-one. Hog's pounce was extremely fast. It had exceeded Delpha's dodging limit. As a psychic-type soul-catcher banshee, if she was hit by this frenzied bite, she would definitely have a low HP. She might even be killed instantly. However, Bai Xiaowen had been paying attention to the battlefield. When Hog used Frenzied Bite, he reacted quickly and immediately airdropped a skeleton swordsman. Delpha only took 2 scratches. The rest of the attacks were all eaten by the skeleton swordsman, who had a confused look on his face. The scratches caused bone fragments to fly everywhere. Delpha flapped her wings and opened up a distance of 5 feet. 2 bloody wounds appeared on her chest and abdomen. Blood was oozing out. However, she was very experienced in combat. She did not run away blindly. Instead, she took the opportunity when the skeleton swordsman blocked her scimitar and stabbed Hog's eyes with her spear. Poochie! Hog could not move during the frenzied bite, so his dodging was even worse. Although the attack did not hit his eyes, it hit his nose. It immediately affected his tear ducts and he let out a deafening howl of pain. Bai Xiaowen smiled. The nose of a gnoll was very sensitive. At the same time, it also meant that this was a very big weakness. Seeing that Hog had used Frenzied Bite and was less of a threat to Delpha, Bai Xiaowen divided more attention to deal with the battle in other areas. The leader of the dragon spawn, Blade Scale Striker Nikitas, was very strong. However, he was blocked by the Butcher, who had thick HP. Under the double weakening effect of Soul Rhythm and Rotting Toxin, this dragon spawn boss only dealt a few dozen damage to the Butcher. The Butcher could completely tank it. This was also the result of Bai Xiaowen's insight in advance. Nikita's powerful skills such as Heavy Crush and Cleave could not be used in front of the Butcher. As for the Frost Breath, the Butcher was originally a big fatty with slow movements. He relied on the Rotting Toxin to disgust the enemy, so it was not a big problem for him to be slowed down by the Frost Breath. The one that they really needed to pay attention to was the half-dragon boss, Bucky. This agile leader lurked in the shadows since the beginning of the battle and did not appear. Instead, it took up a lot of Bai Xiaowen's attention. Insight showed that Bucky had a very strong explosive ability. If he succeeded in a sneak attack, even if it did not cause the White Phoenix team to lose members, it would at least cripple one of them. On the battlefield, Bai Xiaowen's side was also at a disadvantage in terms of numbers. There were still too many elites from the dragon spawn. One of the reasons why the undead army was able to fight to such a stalemate was that the undead were not afraid of death, or rather, they did not have the emotion of fear. The more important reason was Bai Xiaowen's command. He could control the entire team to a single person. One by one, the elite ghosts and spiders formed small teams to divide and disintegrate the monsters. In most areas of the battlefield, the main purpose of the battle was to delay, and in limited areas of 1 or 2 areas, they formed a combat advantage to annihilate the enemy. As time passed, Gloria was still in a half-kneeling position. The vortex formed by the dark clouds continued to pour cold energy into the skeletal greatsword and into the bottom of the ice lake. The battle was very tense. Most of the undead creatures had less than 1/3 of their HP left. Of course, the dragon spawn monsters were not much better. Many of them had lost more than half of their HP. The Gnoll boss hog still had 1/3 of its HP left, which was more than 200 HP. Delpha, who was fighting against it, still had a healthy amount of HP, but the price was that the 2 skeletal swordsmen that Bai Xiaowen had airdropped as support were smashed into pieces. It was time. Bai Xiaowen suddenly raised his hand, and the Wrath Claw appeared behind the Gnoll boss hog, waving its claws repeatedly. Tear, bite, tear. Hog's body shook, and he elbowed the Wrath Claw in the chest, causing the huge Wrath Claw to stagger and take a few steps back. However, this was also the final radiance of the setting sun. A lightning strike landed on its head, and at the same time, Delifa's spiritual spear whistled and pierced its throat again. Bai Xiaowen shot a bullet from dozens of meters away. The Knoll boss hog died suddenly. Delifa's wings flapped, and it immediately returned to the safest area, which was Gloria's side. She raised her hands high and began to chant. Souls that linger in this place, awaken. Return to the cold body, ignite the flame of the soul, with malice and hatred for the living, rise. Bai Xiaowen finally understood what the so-called 10 seconds of preparation time meant. This awkward chant was a bit awkward. With no one interrupting her, Delifer's chant ended smoothly. Within the range of her spiritual power, skeletons slowly stood up on the bodies of all the dead soldiers. The skeletons on Hog's corpse slowly sat up, and the soul fire ignited in their empty eye sockets. Creak, creak, creak. The new skeletons looked around, then raised their rusty swords and slowly walked toward the enemies. Well, Bai Xiaowen didn't understand how this rusty sword appeared, so he could only attribute it to the effect of the spiritual particles. Gloria's corpse resurrection was quite effective on this battlefield full of corpses. In an instant, more than 100 skeleton soldiers were summoned. Although these skeleton soldiers were only ordinary skeletons, there were so many of them. This was Bai Xiaowen's backup plan, and also one of his experimental tactics. Wrath Claw howled to the sky. All allies' attack power and attack speed were increased by 20%. Bai Xiaowen's cloak, the commander's cloak, moved without wind, and the command roar was activated. All allies' damage was increased by 15%, and the damage received was reduced by 15%. It seemed that in just an instant, the tense situation on the battlefield was broken. The undead monsters, flashing with the red light of buffs, waved their swords and launched a silent charge. The elite undead monsters, who might have died in battle, survived under the effect of the command roar. The dragonkin monsters, who were also in a state of low HP, were naturally not so lucky. After the new skeleton soldiers joined the attack, they were killed one after another. However, just as Bai Xiaowen was about to make a comeback, a shadow appeared behind him. It was the half-dragon leader, Marky. Stealth break. Multiple piercing. Poison burst. Marky had already thought of a set of combos. His initial target was Bai Xiaowen, the leader. However, Bai Xiaowen had been very careful. When he retracted his spirit power, it was as if it was solid. As long as Marky was within a certain distance of Bai Xiaowen, he would almost certainly be sensed. Therefore, Marky had been holding back. He finally waited for Bai Xiaowen to be careless. He immediately went into stealth and attacked from behind Bai Xiaowen. A white light flashed, and Bai Xiaowen seemed to be dragged by an invisible hand. He flew across the battlefield to Qiao Rui's side. Qiao Rui had used the party skill, Pull. The reason why Li Shi did not use Pull was because Li Shi was fighting a few elite dragonkin monsters. It was not safe. Marky's dagger fell on empty air. He was furious. His body rushed forward like a snake, and he actually passed through the obstruction of two undead creatures and chased after Bai Xiaowen. Sound attack array. Qiao Rui's soul bamboo flute was erected. A rune suddenly appeared on the ice surface and imprisoned Marky. I've been waiting for you. Bai Xiaowen waved his hand. Li Shi, who was already prepared, quickly retreated. He activated Wild Charge again, and his target was the half-dragon boss, Marky. The Wrath Claw ran wildly with its 4 claws. When Li Shi knocked Marky back and entered an unbalanced state, its claws suddenly landed on Marky's shoulders. It exerted force and pushed him down. It activated its ultimate suppressive skill. The Shadow Assassin activated Assassinate. The skeleton warrior raised its greatsword high and began to accumulate power. Li Shi finally activated the Devilfire dance that he had been holding back for so long. His 2 swords pierced out rapidly with flames. Bai Xiaowen also began to shoot with both hands. The White Phoenix party used perfect coordination to explain what it meant to switch targets. Although it was a pity that they did not have the Butcher's Rotting Toxin to reduce their resistance, as an agility-type boss, Marquis's defense and magic resistance were not high. Moreover, the Butcher had been the main tank fighting against the Dragonkin leader, Nikita's. He was unable to withdraw himself and did not rush over to join in the focus fire so quickly. Chapter 652. The Dragonkin monsters were defeated. Although the skeleton soldiers could only exist for 44 seconds, these dozens of seconds were enough to determine the outcome of the battle. Bai Xiaowen maximized the use of these skeleton soldiers, driving them to the side of the Dragonkin leader Nikita's as much as possible. Before being swung to death by Nikita's broadsword, even a single slash and a dozen points of damage would be a bonus. Many a little makes a mickle. Nikita's had already lost a lot of his HP due to the Butcher's decay. Under the continuous suicidal attacks of the skeleton soldiers, his HP was dropping at an even faster rate. The Butcher did not have much HP left. Bai Xiaowen withdrew it at the right time to join in the killing of the other Dragonkin monsters. Relying on the passive effect of the slaughterhouse, the Butcher's HP slowly increased. It could not be helped. Qiao Rui's life healing skill was essentially the energy of life. Like the healing spells of the Holy Series, it would have a negative effect on the undead that was full of dark and negative energy. Even if Qiao Rui subjectively regarded the Butcher as an ally, it could not change this fact. To heal the undead creatures, only skills such as shadow healing and withering entanglement were effective, but these skills often could not heal living creatures. However, it was fine as long as the Butcher did not die. The appearance of more than 100 skeleton soldiers was enough to change the situation of the battle. Moreover, as time passed and the number of dead increased, more skeleton soldiers would be transformed. Delifa's corpse resurrection skill would continue to take effect after it was activated, but it would constantly reduce the user's MP. Of course, the skeleton soldiers that were generated later were not lucky enough to enjoy the bonus of the Wrathclaw's howl and the bonus of the commander's roar. They were weaker. Filthy monsters. Nikita spat out a mouthful of frost, and 7 or 8 skeleton soldiers in the cone-shaped area in front of him were frozen into ice sculptures. He raised his broadsword high up, and with a slash, the few unlucky skeleton soldiers were all scraped into bone fragments. But it was useless. The 2 skills had only killed less than 10 skeletons, and there were still dozens of skeletons to fill in the gaps. Nikita's mental strength was limited, and it was not enough to support him to cast too many skills. After the Dragonkin monsters fell into a disadvantageous position, some of them began to flee. Among them, the surviving elite Snowland Kobold Wizards and Knoll Warriors made up the majority. These 2 tribes belonged to the vassal tribes of the Dragon race, also known as the Dragon's Kin. The Dragon race did not admit that kobolds had dragon blood. They were more wretched, and fighting to the death was not their style. The remaining stubborn Dragonkin monsters fell like wheat being harvested. In the end, Nikita's was the only Dragonkin monster left alive on the frozen lake. However, his HP had already fallen to about 1/3. At this time, the duration of the skeleton soldiers had already expired, and the main force besieging Nikita's was Bai Xiaowen's summoned creatures. As for the elite ghosts and spiders under Gloria's command, Bai Xiaowen did not want them to even touch the boss. The Butcher, who had returned to full HP and was full of vigor again, stood in front of Nikita's again. He bared his teeth, and his fat face revealed a smile that made Nikita's extremely angry. Despite his anger, a sense of helplessness welled up in Nikita's heart. This was not an illusion. The Butcher's rotting toxin had once again taken effect, greatly reducing Nikita's defense and damage output against the Butcher. The dragon will eventually return, and you will all become food. After uttering the last curse, Nikita's last sliver of HP was depleted, and he fell on his back. Since then, the 4 commander-level Dragonkin monsters had all died. Bai Xiaowen didn't want to chase after the escaping snowy kobolds and gnolls. It would be bad if the snowy kobolds and gnolls were to take advantage of the situation. The White Phoenix team patiently waited for the end of the quest. During this process, Xiao Rui was still patrolling the surrounding situation through the Falcon Spirit to prevent the possible siege of the next wave of Dragonkin monsters, although the possibility was relatively low. Taking advantage of this time, Bai Xiaowen took out the treasure chests he had obtained from this battle and opened them one by one. 4 gold treasure chests and 7 silver treasure chests. Including the previous black-scaled Earth Dragon Commander, this quest actually requires us to kill 5 Commander-level monsters to complete. Li Shi sighed. More Commander-level monsters means more rewards. Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, let's open these 3 level 7 Commander-level treasure chests first. 1 for each of us. Let's relax a little. The 3 level 7 Commander-level treasure chests all had a C rating, and each of them had a chance to draw. Of course, the Commander-level treasure chests also came with a lot of psionic points. Li Shi chose the half-dragon boss Bucky's treasure chest. After opening it, he drew a skill book. Poison Burst Skill Book, teaches you the Poison Burst skill. Poison Burst, passive. You can apply poison on the blade of your sword. Your normal attack will poison the target. The target will receive 6 poison damage, equivalent to the user's profession level, every 5 seconds for 15 seconds. The effect can be stacked up to 10 times. Active activation of Poison Burst will cause a one-time explosion and remove all the poison stacks. This skill was very powerful. It was a combination of continuous damage and explosive damage. It was because Bai Xiaowen had seen this skill that he was extremely wary of Marky. Of course, Marky had other skills to complement it. He had a multi-piercing skill that could add multiple stages of damage in one attack. He could deal 10 layers of poison passivity in the shortest time possible, so he was especially terrifying. Obviously, this kind of skill that relied on attack speed was the most suitable for Li Shi. I don't have a slot to learn this skill. Unless I forget the combo skill, Li Shi said. No, your combo skill is now a triple combo. Although its star level is a little low, it is very compatible with your fighting style and the output style of this new skill. You must keep it, Bai Xiaowen said. The other 2 skills are a sudden attack and a life-saving and area of effect skill. They are very suitable for you. Unless you encounter a better skill of the same type, you must not change them. Then, I can only wait until I become a hero and have an extra skill slot to learn this skill, Li Shi said after thinking for a while. Junior, you are quite lucky. Xiao Rui smiled and handed over the golden treasure chest in his hand. You can open this chest too. That's not possible. Sister Qiao, you can open the chest yourself. Li Shi was very tempted. The pleasure of drawing cards from a small chest was indescribable. It was easy to get addicted. Xiao Rui was very perceptive. How could he not know Li Shi's true thoughts? He smiled and shook his head, handing over the chest again. Then I won't stand on ceremony. Chapter 653. Li Shi didn't get a skill book this time. Instead, he got a miniature statue of a 5-headed dragon. It was so dirty that it didn't seem to have any value. Fortunately, there was a notification from the spiritual realm. You've received a special item, Dirty Statue of God. Dirty Statue of God, a statue of the Kobold Diviner. It is slightly damaged due to poor storage. After using it, it has a deceptive effect on dragon-type monsters. There is a certain chance that they will listen to your orders. The success rate, duration, and effectiveness are related to the user's charm. Number of uses, 2 halves. Disappears after use. Li Shi asked, what does sigma, what does deceptive mean? Literally. Bai Xiaowen smiled and shook his head. The 5-headed dragon is the mother of evil dragons in Western legends. Her name is Tiamat. It's normal for her statue to have an effect on dragon-type monsters. Xiao Rui said, the description of this item seems a little inappropriate, but it might be useful sometimes. Let's put it in the public storage space. I think Captain will be the one to use it. How about this? If the target is a female dragon-type monster, let's let Xiaowen use it. If it's a male dragon-type monster, let Sister Qiao use it. Li Shi's imagination was running wild. By Xiaowen, Qiao Rui smiled and said, that makes sense. Western dragons are highly intelligent creatures, and they have a very special aesthetic view of the opposite sex of other races. In other words, when a female dragon sees the captain, she will also be stunned. You used the word also very well, but there's no need to be stunned. Bai Xiaowen smiled and quickly changed the topic. There's something else in the Kobold Diviner's treasure chest. Li Shi took it out. You've received a special item, Dragon Research Notes. Dragon Research Notes records some of Mi Bo's experiences in studying dragons. The scribbles on it are difficult to read. Bai Xiaowen took the scribbled parchment notes and flipped through it. The handwriting on it wasn't just scribbles. It was a masterpiece of a dog's paw scratching. It wasn't easy to read it. However, this notebook did not use up all the parchment pages. There were still a few blank pages at the back. It's all right. Even if you can't identify the contents of the notes, the blank parchment at the back is still valuable, Bai Xiaowen said. These blank parchments were spiritual items and could record some encrypted information about the spirit world's laws, such as Tier 2 potion recipes. Ordinary paper pages that did not contain psionic particles could not record encrypted information. As for modern computer documents and so on, they were all useless. Furthermore, encrypted information had to be handwritten. After that was the treasure chest of the Knoll Boss Hog. Bai Xiaowen chose to draw, and his luck was not bad. He drew a gold equipment, bone tooth necklace. Bone tooth necklace, bound after pickup, rarity, hero, gold, equipment position, neck, prerequisite, base strength 20, base agility 20, element, none, additional skill, bone teeth collector, passive. Every time you kill a boss, you will receive 1 free attribute point, treated as basic attribute. Maximum of 5 free attribute points. Active activation of this skill will allow you to redistribute the free attribute points obtained through this method. Cooldown, 24 hours, durability description. The ferocious snow gnolls dare to hunt ferocious beasts and use the teeth of their prey as necklaces to show their strength. This equipment is equivalent to adding 5 free attribute points, right? Li Shi muttered. It doesn't seem very strong. It's about the same as a standard equipment. Bai Xiaowen almost tripped and fell. Miss, this equipment is much better than standard gold tier equipment. Qiao Rui nodded. She also saw the value of this equipment. The point is that the Bone Teeth Collector passively adds basic attribute points, and the importance of basic attribute points is undeniable. With this equipment, you may be able to equip equipment that requires a few more free attribute points. But you still have to kill a boss to get it. How difficult is that for an ordinary awakened? Li Shi said. Bai Xiaowen nodded. From an ordinary person's point of view, this gold equipment is indeed useless. It's not even as good as a standard gold equipment. However, it's not difficult for us to kill a boss. We can quickly discover the potential of this equipment. Pausing for a moment, Bai Xiaowen continued, the Viper Dragon's blood that Shi obtained previously requires 25 points of basic constitution to drink, and her basic constitution is only 22 points. I originally planned to let Shi drink a bottle of constitution enhancement potion to make up for this shortfall. However, with this equipment, there's no need for that. To be precise, it only needs to increase her basic attribute points by 1 point. This is because Shi will level up 7 times during the hero trial. Leveling up will also increase her basic attribute points by 2 points. Together, she can reach the standard of 25 basic attribute points. Although Li Shi hadn't taken the strengthening potion many times and the success rate was very high, there was always a chance. Bai Xiaowen didn't really want to bet on the success rate of the strengthening potion when there was an alternative. Li Shi was a little embarrassed. But I already have the Heaven's Emergence necklace. This equipment should be useful to all of you. I can't hold it well. The Heaven's Emergence Necklace is indeed an exquisite gold equipment. The Heaven's Emergence Necklace comes with a passive skill that can save your life when you're attacked. However, it's important to note that the equipment's performance is not stable, Bai Xiaowen said. Unless it's absolutely necessary, who would be willing to expose their weak points? Even if they had the Heaven's Emergence Necklace, they wouldn't be willing to do so. Your life-saving skills are Shadowless Slash and the Ring of Nothingness. That's enough. Why don't you increase your basic attribute points and increase your maximum health points? Qiao Rui also nodded and said, yes, you'll be participating in a hero trial alone. Without the protection of your teammates, you'll have to absorb damage sometimes to increase your survivability. Li Shi's face was slightly tipsy. He had no choice but to accept the team's allocation and replace his original Heaven's Emergence Necklace. Finally, it was the Dragonoid leader Nikita's treasure chest. It was worth mentioning that this boss battle rating was B, which meant that there would be 2 free draws. This time, Qiao Rui was the one to draw. It was unknown whether he was lucky or the Dragonoid leader's treasure chest was high in value. He actually drew 2 gold equipment at once. One of them was a weapon. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.